Hello and welcome to the Hawks Nest live stream show. I am here with the epic return, as always, of Brendon Nelson, Seahawks Brendon Nelson, to you guys officially, of course. Welcome back on into the show, Brendon.
Thank you for having me back on, Brandon. How are you doing this week?
I'm doing good. Fighting through a little sickness, but doing okay. Otherwise, I'm coming through strong, bouncing back, as they say. Well, we are amidst a little bit of not even into the dark side of the off season yet, right? We're not even getting to the off season. We've still got the playoffs and stuff, and so there's some out there might think, oh, there's not really anything to talk about. There's not really anything to. What new things can you have to discuss? We've got new things to discuss tonight. We've got some topics to turn over, and that's what we're going to try to do with each of these shows. Of course, by the way, I probably should lead with this, Brendon. If you're not subscribed to Brendon's channel, he's over at Seahawks Brendon Nelson. That's his channel name. You go over there, subscribe. We do these weekly back and forth shows. My channel, his show, his channel, Thursday. We're now doing about 7 o'clock at night. Try to give you guys a little bit later chance to get everybody on. But tonight we're going to concentrate on a couple of different things because these are much valued about topics in Seahawks land, and that is salary cap space and some free agents that we might want to start to hone on in, target on, get that reticule in on them, right? I know that there's going to be some folks that are going to have a lot of questions about coaches and stuff like the defensive coach position specifically and some of the hullabaloo on that. We'll touch a little bit on that as we get through here onto the other side of the show a bit. But we want to touch on these two topics, I think, Brendon, as much as ever. Because these are discussions that waver all over the place. You have some Seahawks fans. I don't know if you see the same thing from your chat of we don't really have that much space. If you look at it, read the field goal articles, other people who will say, like myself, go, we've got a cavalcade of money to spend here. Do you kind of feel like it's in the same sort of place, the discussion as far as the salary cap's concerned?
Yeah, I think that's something we definitely need to clarify. And I think it's definitely something that we need to make sure people are not making excuses for. Because if we're sitting here in April and the free agency first wave and second wave have come and gone and we haven't gotten what we need to get, then I don't want anybody thinking, well, we just didn't have enough money. No, there's money. There's definitely money.
Yeah.
If this team chooses to not spend it or spend it in the same way that they spent it 2 years ago in the offseason, then they're doing it because they want to, not because they have to. And I don't want anybody thinking that, oh, it's not Carroll's fault. It's Wilson's fault because he took all our money. No, that's not what's going on here. It's not Jamal Adams's fault because he took all our money. That's not the case. And if this team wants to go out and add some big time free agents, they can. The money is there. And I want to actually try to put some numbers on that today, if that sounds good to you.
It absolutely does. And I just want to echo, this is the little bit of the point of this exercise as we're going through, not only to get excited about the potentiality of this, but to Brendon's initial point on this again, we're trying to remove some of the excuse making. We hope for the greatest success. We just don't, again, to fix problems, we stop removing excuses and start pressing down tails to the floor and go, no, this is where we're having issues. You're not spending all the money you could. You're not trying to rework any contracts. You're not seemingly spending all the money you have at your disposal. All of these things we kind of saw last off season, a season where they should have been going for it. And now we enter into this off season, a season where we're going to be told by this coaching staff, we're not retooling. We are not rebuilding. We are reloading. And if that's the case, then you would be spending, right? Don't those logically all to go together? And from where I stand, wouldn't you say the same, Brendon?
Yeah. And if you actually do want to reload, this is the only way to do it. You can't do it through the draft. You don't have enough picks. You do have some good picks, and you might be able to get some good players, but you're not going to be able to just reload through the draft like the Eagles might be able to do. And I don't think you can do it with just your outgoing players, because with those players that you had this year, look at what happened. You didn't have a good season. So it's got to be more than that. You got to change things up a little bit. So I absolutely think this has to be done. And if this team is serious about going all out to try to win in 2022, then you will see big things happening in free agency come, I think, late March.
And big expenditures with that. I think it breaks down into two types of levels, doesn't it, Brendon, to this point, which is salary cap space that the Seahawks have, first off, which I'd like you to kind of lead with what we've kind of got as we walk into this. And then the second part of that being what they're likely to clear out, right? There's obligations on the books versus likely cuts to equal out to really where you're going to be landing at from a cap standpoint.
All right. So I've been crunching some numbers this last week. I've been like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Mind, standing in a room with a bunch of newspapers taped and glued to the walls. And I got the red string going from this point to that point. Or maybe that reference is
the Hangover one with all, that's the one that's used now a bunch, right? With the, it's got all the mathematical problems coming past your head and spinning over.
Or It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Charlie.
Oh yeah. He's got the cigarette coming out his mouth.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
And okay, so let's run it down just for the Seahawks. So
here we go.
As of right now, the Seahawks have, according to SpoTrack, which is an estimate, but it's a pretty good estimate, $43 million in cap space going into 2022. $43 million. They are going to lose a little bit of that because of an extension to Metcalf that I believe is inevitable. They are going to lose a little bit of that because of the IR and practice squad. That's what, $4 million maybe you want to save just in case players get hurt in the practice squad. Okay. But that still leaves you in theory with, I don't know, let's say the first year of Metcalf's cap hit 8 or 9 million. Let's just go with that. It could be more, could be less.
Right. That's good. That's a good spot.
Yeah, but you're still leaving yourself with about 30 million in cap space, which is well above the league average. The league average right now is 18 million. So even if the Metcalf extension and the IR and practice squad money takes you down to 30, you are still almost twice as much as the average. And building on that, if this team moves on from Bobby Wagner, moves on from Chris Carson, Jason Myers, Benson Mayowa, LJ Collier, if they just make those cuts of players who I think are pretty obvious cut candidates, you're saving about, I think it's 25 to 28 million additionally. So now you're talking 65 million, or well, no, wait, 55 million, my bad, 55 million. And then on top of that, you can restructure 5 players to save additional cap space. And this is something that I made a video about this morning, but we haven't talked about it in this space yet. Restructuring is not going to make you lose that player. And it's not really something the player is going to push back against because their cash flow is not really changing. The only thing that changes is when that cash shows up on your cap. So don't get me wrong. You can't wave a magic wand and make cap space appear out of nowhere. Everything you do has a price. It's like Newton's third law. You can't just create matter and you can't just destroy matter. It has to go somewhere. Mm-hmm. So the cap space that you're saving this year will come back in future years. But that's what teams do when they're trying to win a Super Bowl. And if you want to keep up with the other teams, that's what you have to be willing to do. I'm sorry, but if you have a GM who is unwilling to do things like that, then you need a new GM because that GM is not going to be winning anything because he's showing up to a gunfight with a slingshot with a bottle cap in it.
That's right. And look, this is the messaging they're giving us, Brendon. I mean, this is, again, being consistent as a team in what you're telling us. Are you going for it right now? Or are you restructuring? Are you rebuilding? And you're giving us no indicators in any of what you're giving to us in the media or in your releases of sound bites that that's what you're looking to do. I don't think Carroll at his age at this point is all that interested in going through a rebuild. So if this is the case, then all we're advocating for with this position and what you're trying to indicate there is you've got a ton of money you can use. Maybe you don't use every last dollar bill of that, but even within that, and I'm going to just jump off the back of this little, Brendon, you can fit in those contracts. DK Metcalf, I had the amount at 84, which would be about 21 million per year, but you'd have about 11 million. Your 9 million to 11 million is about right on that. The moving out of Bobby Wagner, the 16.6, to put this in perspective a little bit, I just ran this rough estimate. We'll go to the numbers of this in a second, a little deeper when we get into the guys we're actually going to target. But we could add, Brendon, DK Metcalf on a contract extension, the best left tackle in this free agent period, maybe the best center coming into this free agent period, and you could have Bobby Wagner's release pay for 65% of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Easily. Easily. You might even be able to do better than that if you're willing to delve into the void year voodoo magic, which
Right.
let's
And I
not
was
even go
just
there.
right. I was just trying to we're trying to stay realistic. We're trying not to go too crazy with this, right? So I'm trying to stay in realism mode. So I go, okay. I gave those guys, by the way, bumps off of what the last guy made. So I gave a bump off of what Lindsley made last year. I gave a bump off what the last what Matala, I think, for the Eagles just signed his deal for, resetting the market a little bit, and Trent Williams into that area with the left tackle. Still, that first year cap hit, this is the point we've got to lock into, Brendon, too, as we're talking about this. You can make that first year cap hit pretty low because you can take it down to the base salary plus only bonus. And that really allows you to really squish in contracts if you want to do that within this. So between Brendon's point on how much they could potentially create and then what they could do with if they want to get creative in structuring their contract. And we're not even saying void years, which basically we were looking through the books today, Brendon. I think you saw the same thing. The Seahawks doing this void year thing is being done across the league. I was seeing it in all these contracts that were signed recently going, wow, like the Browns are going to pay for Jadeveon Clowney for 2 years, or at least as far as their cap is concerned. So we're not even delving into that territory, which is another way to create cap space, or even a Russell Wilson restructure, which is another way to create cap space. We're still sitting on all of this.
Right. So let's go over the restructures real quick, because I feel like we should do most of these. If we are serious, we should do pretty much everything I'm about to talk about here. So restructuring Wilson can generate up to $9 million in extra cap space. So now we're at 64 million. Restructuring Tyler Lockett can create about $1.5 million, which is not a huge deal. But by that same token, the cap hit increase over the rest of Lockett's contract is also going to be minimal. So if you feel like you can use that $1.5 million, well, go get it. So now you're at 65.5. You could restructure Jamal Adams and you're only creating about $700,000. But again, what you're pushing forward is basically coins out of your pocket in the grand scheme of things in the NFL. You're just your laundry money, your vending machine money. So you got Jamal, and then you have Michael Dixon, who you can restructure and create about $1.5 million in cap space. So these are all things that would not hurt that much to do. The only thing that would hurt would be the Russell Wilson restructure, because that means the cap hit in 2023 is $9 million more. But what's the cap going to be in 2023? It's going to be probably what, 230 million, 235 million?
Yeah.
Something like that. So to me, you do all that and you deal with the consequences later. By the way, Wilson is going to want an extension next year anyway. I know we're not 100% sure we feel like giving him that, but you can always just extend him and make most of that cap hit go away. So you might not even have to deal with that. The only restructure that I don't know about would be the Gabe Jackson restructure. You can create about $2.5 million in cap space if you restructure Gabe. But I don't know if I would do that, because it means you're pushing more into next year. And I want to be able to cut Gabe next year because he's only going to be due $3 million. I don't want to mess with that number. So I don't know about that. But even if you take the Gabe Jackson part of the equation out, after you do the 4 restructures that I mentioned otherwise, you're talking about 68 million in cap space.
Yes, and you get a lot done with that. And like I just said, that the 3 guys I just mentioned, which would be your high level signings, right? Those would be your 10 pole type signings, would basically cumulatively run you right about $23 million of that money you just said. This is to put that in perspective. You would have taken care of your left tackle, your center, got your young star wide receiver re-signed, and you'd still be sitting on, according to your estimates on that, somewhere in the neighborhood of still $47 million or so. I mean, to go spend, almost still double the amount of what you spend on those initial 3 guys. If you want to go, get your corner now, go get go get a free, go sign Marcus Williams to the Saints. Like, you got a lot of money to spend. It's, again, the will. That's what we're asking for. I think, Brendon, I don't want to speak for you, but that's what I'm asking for. Is I want to see the will here from my front office. I want to see the will from an aging coach who knows the sun is starting to set on his career. Are you willing to go all in? Are you willing to push it? We weren't advocating for this. We sat 2 months ago and said, we see what's up here. This needs to be kind of rebuilt and retooled through. We need to get this down to the studs. So we had a great run, guys. It's okay. Nobody needs to apologize for nothing. We just got to move kind of forward on. That's not where we landed. Where we landed is where we're here. We're here. So if we're here, You're not going to find two more guys that are going to be more all in on wanting to go win. And if you got something you're going to put to the table, let's put it to the table, push it all in. Let's not leave the stack of chips sitting back in our hands this year with 68 million potentially really. And some of it, again, you miss small little restructures and boy, you're going to be pushing the hit down the road. But so what? Isn't that the point of being all in? Isn't that the point of going for Super Bowls, is the risk that you do take down that road? Again, understanding that there is so much at stake here with, we still don't have Wilson's long-term future cemented. We still don't know what our coaching situation is going to be long-term if this fails out. I mean, we could be looking from start to finish at a whole rebuild of everything at that point. That same thing we're asking kind of for this at this time. So, all right, well, let's dive into this, Brendon. Then let's draw this forward into real guys. Let's get into this as far as what this really means on the football field, is the players and the names that we can put to in the positions here. And I want to kind of go back and forth between us here, have a little bit of fun with this, as far as you kind of give me your guys you would target in your cluster to take a nice chunk of that money. I'm sure you, like me, have not taken in your proverbial plan all of the money, but you've got a good chunk of it to your set of guys. Give me your breakdown on your kind of top priority free agent guys you'd really want to lock into, and maybe just, if you even got them, just base numbers, what you'd be looking at signing them for if you did.
All right. So let's start with the positions of really obvious need. We've already kind of given our tier list for positional need. Let's start with the areas that really need it. So we're going to start with running back. I think I'm not doing this in any order, by the way. I think our most important position of need is left tackle. Yeah. But let's start with running back, because there's one guy I really like who I think would be cheap and I think would be good, and that is Marlon Mack. Kind of a forgotten guy in Indianapolis. He had a 1,000-yard season, almost had another 1,000-yard season early in his career. And the last 2 years, he's barely played. He's about to turn 26, I believe. And because he really hasn't done anything in 2 years, I think you could probably get him for cheap. Spotrac estimates his next contract will be about 2 years, $5 million. I think he's going to get less than Penny's going to get. Yeah. And I think he's still good. I think more than anything, he just kind of fell off the map because the Colts got Jonathan
Taylor.
Jonathan Taylor, thank you. I almost said Jonathan Stewart. I'm off by almost a generation.
Hey, it happens. Wait till you start getting older. It starts happening on everything.
Yeah.
You get old and you're like, Jonathan builds things.
Yeah. So anyway, you bring in Marlon Mack and then you bring back Rashad Penny. That first year, you are probably going to be spending about $5 million combined between the two of them. And I think you've really got something there. And you could probably either draft a guy, or you could probably go forward with Travis Homer, because I think Travis Homer has proven he is a very good third down back, very capable in that role. Maybe you like DJ. I'm on the fence on DJ. I'm pretty ambivalent there. He seems okay, but I'm not excited. But the point is, you're going to have some really good horses in that stable at your running back spot for cheap. That's $5 million combined for Rashad Penny and Marlon Mack. Mm-hmm. I sign me up for that. That's my number one running back right now.
Well, and to your point, just to build on your point with Jonathan Taylor, not only is he held them back by Jonathan Taylor, look, Marlon Mack's good, but he's not going to overtake Taylor for carries. But they've also had Naheem Himes over there, who just signed a contract extension at the start of this year for the Colts, and he's become one of the better third down backs in the entire league. So Mack can't even really break in carries past that point either. He's sort of stacked behind two different guys there, which may speak more, I think, to your point on this, of he hasn't been able to get get over the injury, the Achilles injury, but rather he just isn't quite as good as these top-notch guys, specializing in what they do. Or Taylor can't do third down back stuff, but they've got the third down back, and Taylor can do all the first down, second down stuff. He's a man without a country a little bit there at that point, but still useful. I love it too, Brendon, because I'd love to be able to keep the corner and running back position specifically a little more devalued in this upcoming season to put the assets in other places. And your plan does that well there. So I can get behind that. All right. Well, what you got next?
Well, okay. I'll give one more running back if we do this, if Marlon Mack isn't the guy. Just one more guy who I like. I'm looking at the list right now. The only other running back who really kind of gets me excited would be Pip Lindsay, but I think he's going to be a little more expensive. But I do like Philip Lindsay. I do think he's a good running back. And
he's going to be expensive?
I don't know about expensive, but I think he's going to be more than Marlon Mack for sure. I think he's going to be enough to where you're going to have to pause for a second and be like, "Oh, do I want to do this?"
Because
But
my
you might be right.
yeah, I'm not sure on it. I'm not sure. Well, it's just I was just double checking this because I want to make sure I'm not going. He's only got it over the last 2 years like 700 yards rushing. Or
Yeah,
something well, maybe a little more.
yeah,
He's been broken down since kinda I mean, he has played in 15, 16 games initially in 2018 and 2019, but then from there, it's, 11 games, 14 games, 10 games, but I mean, you might be right. I mean, he's probably gonna make maybe like a 3,000,000. That's still more, and that would still price him out of Seattle's range to your point on that. I think you're looking
yeah.
to you're looking to stay down. What about the guy I put on my list? What about Leonard Fournette?
I have never been a Leonard Fournette fan. I just don't think he's good. He kind of makes me think of like an Eddie George type where he runs for 3 yards a carry, and then
Mhm,
everybody's like, "Oh, he's so good because he runs so tough."
mhm.
Meanwhile, he's got 3 yards a carry. I'm not in. I'm not into that. I don't think he's that good. He's been playing life on easy mode the last 2 years with Brady and Arians and Leftwich and Gronk and Evans and Godwin and AB. He's had life on easy mode. I'm not a big fan of Fournette, and I think because he is a high profile guy, because he was a top 5 pick, because no wait, top 10 pick, excuse me. And because he did win a Super Bowl and he did have a really nice playoff run a couple years ago, he might be a little more expensive. He might be more in the 7 million a year camp, and I'm not. I can't go there.
If he's in the 3,000,000 a year camp, or could you go there?
Yeah, I would be willing to do it for 3 million. I think he's worth that. I mean, 3 million. Justin Britt got over 3 million last year to basically collect paychecks and hang out at the Houston training facility all year. So 3 million, yeah, sure, I'll do it, but I'm not a huge Fournette fan.
I just I've always I know why you can have some hesitancy on Fournette. I think he has gotten a little bit of a bad rap at times. I don't think he's always the most probably committed or what, but he's uber talented and he fits into that Carol Marshawn mold like just about no other back out there right now rolling. There's a couple other backs that do pretty well would fit that mold too, but he'd be in there, and I can't help but think a couple years ago, and you might be right about the magical playoff run, and he produced this year at 4.5 yards per average carry, 850 yards. Um, but then to the part I keep going back to is 2 years ago when he was 2 years younger, any team could have claimed him on the waiver wire for a 1 year, $4 million deal, and nobody took him.
Right. At that point, he was kind of headed down the Trent Richardson path, and getting to play on easy mode in Tampa Bay with like all those guys I just reeled off. It has helped him a lot, but I'm not sure that's who he is.
It's fair. I mean, it's fair. If he gets into that price realm to me, and you're moving on from Carson to go to Fournette, and you're doing it, let's say a 2 year, $6 million deal to do so while you're bringing Penny in as a thunder and lightning approach. I like that. I got a guy to wear down defenses. I got my home run hitter, and then I can work the rest of my backs in around that. If I got to go that route, I'm good with the Mac deal too, so I'm not opposed to that. I think running backs. I'm more we've talked about. I'm more worried about the offensive line and how you're building that than where it comes out at the running backs. But it's just interesting. Interesting. Okay, what else we got?
All right, so that's really all I have for running back. So moving on to the next position. We got a tight end, which right now we basically don't have a tight end. We have Colby Parkinson, and that's it.
Yeah,
No disrespect to Colby though. He's actually a better blocker than I thought, but
me too. Yeah.
not really a guy I want to be my number one tight end going into 2022. Now, I think there's a good chance we bring back Everett, and I'm cool with that. But this free agency class is loaded with tight ends. You
Mhm.
got young tight ends, you got middle-aged tight ends, you got aging tight ends. You've got every kind of tight end that you can imagine. So if Gerald Everett goes somewhere else, then I'm not shedding a tear because there's definitely going to be somebody decent you can get to replace him.
Absolutely.
I could sit here and read off a bunch of names, but if we lose Everett, the guy who I would have my eye on, and I almost wonder if he'll be too expensive, it would probably be Dalton Schultz, because there's no way in the universe Dallas is going to be able to keep him. I think that he had like 800 yards last year. He's
Mhm.
not a big name, so I don't think he's going to be guaranteed the big money, but he might get a decent chunk of money, maybe a little more than I'm willing to spend. But I think he's good. He's kind of come out of nowhere the last 2 years because Blake Jarwin hasn't panned out for them. and he's been very productive. You got some other guys here like CJ Uzoma from the Bengals. I think he might stay in Cincy because they still have Burrow on their rookie deal, so they might be able to just keep him around.
And they have a ton of
But
cap space.
yeah, but they might not be able to. I like Mo Alley Cox a little bit. I like the Vikings guy. Shoot, what's his name? He had like 600 yards for the Vikings this year. Shoot, let me hold on here. Tyler Conklin. He had about 600 yards. That would be good. And David Njoku, only 25 and a half years old, not even barely going to be 26 by the time the season starts. I like all those guys. There are probably a couple others I didn't even mention too. Yeah, OJ Howard is good too. Maybe Mike Gesicki. I don't know, but I like Mike Gesicki.
I love Gesicki. He's so much fun to watch as a player. He's got he's got the craziest catch radius.
Yeah, and even Eric Ebron, who somehow is only going to be 29 this upcoming season. It feels like he's 36. I don't know how he's only 29, but he is. So there are a ton of good options at tight end. Ton of them.
There definitely. I think what it'll do too, to your point on this, is it'll level the field for getting high paid tight ends out there. I think it's going to be hard for them to make super high end money as opposed to last offseason where a couple guys in Hunter Henry and Jonnu Smith got really well paid at tight end position because there was a little bit of dearth of options out there. My sticker's peeling in the background. I'm going to cover it up this way. I got to pull it down. It's going to bother the hell out of me. But I think that you'll be able to go out and get a couple of guys. I like all the options you mentioned. It'll be interesting what the Cowboys do this offseason, Brendon. They've got between Amari Cooper and Schultz. They don't, because you look at a couple guys like Zeke, they can't get out from under that contract quite yet. Obviously, nowhere Dak they're in. A couple other guys. I wonder whether maybe they end up Demarcus
Lawrence.
I wonder if he might be a cut candidate. I think they save like $9 million, and you could just flip Micah Parsons to the outside, bring back Gregory, and call your edge game good at that point if they were thinking about.
Yeah, I can pretty much guarantee that Cooper's gone because they save a ton of money if they let him go, and he didn't even have that good of a season, and they're over the cap. They're not just at the cap. They are over the cap. They have some restructure candidates, like they could restructure Prescott probably, and they probably have to, but there's not a whole lot they can do. By the way, they're also going to lose Michael Gallup, and by the way, they already paid Blake Jarwin, so they can't have two big tight ends. So I think Dalton Schultz will hit. He would be the guy that I'm looking at if we need to go get a tight end this offseason outside of Everett. By the way, some of the names I didn't mention would be Zach Ertz, Rob Gronkowski, Jimmy Graham, Jared Cook, Evan Ingram. I'm not a fan of these guys, but they're going to depress the market. Robert Tonyan Jr., Max Williams. These guys are going to suck up some of the money that could have gone to some of the guys I do like. These guys are probably going to go for cheaper than you expected.
Well, and as you said before, you have one tight end on the roster. You need two. Tyler Mabry is not going to be the answer for us going forward. So you might need to sign a couple guys. What about a Zach Ertz, Dave Njoku combination in free agency, which really may not cost all that much? David Njoku was highly talented coming out, really raw, really young. He got stacked in the doghouse there with that coach. It seems like they had a couple other really talented tight ends emerge for them there, including the one they signed in Hooper a couple of years ago to big money. So you bring him in. I mean, is he really going to command a massive deal in the market with all of the guys that you've mentioned? Hard to see there. So you probably can fit two of these guys in and see it only end up no more than what Olsen costed a couple of years up on your cap if you structure it right. With you had him taking up $7 million that year,
Yeah, and if we bring back Disley to be the number 2 tight end, I think that's fine too, to be clear. I don't think you need to build some super amazing tight end offense in Seattle when we have a little bit of a track record of Wilson sometimes struggling to utilize those guys to their fullest extent. I don't know if you want to make that commitment, but yeah, you're absolutely right. You could say, okay, we're going to bring in Zach Ertz and we're going to bring in a Dalton Schultz or a David Njoku or an OJ Howard. It's actually really going to be, I think, a buyer's market on the tight ends. So you could go get two. I like it.
I'm with it too. If you're especially getting one young guy and one old guy, then you're not doing the one Greg Olsen where it's like, oh, hope the 32-year-old holds up with his broken history of being injured. Let's lay our bets on that one. All right, so we've got our running backs. We've got a little view of the tight ends. We haven't gone big. Your plan yet hasn't gone big on money. You've been pretty frugal so far. Brendon. You've been pretty frugal.
Mhm.
So where are we going? And I know this, again, you said it's not in the order. We're doing this just kind of like we're doing this Hendrix style, just free willing it on the arm or whatever they call the end of the guitar. I'm not a musician. I don't know
Mhm.
drums. But what would be your next step on this plan?
Okay. Well, let's stick on the offense and actually bust open the checkbook here because I think it's time.
Ooh.
I think it's time, guys. We got to talk about the offensive line. Now, I've been over the offensive line. I think we're okay at guard. We could get better, but we don't necessarily have to. I think that if you move Damian Lewis back to right guard, which please, you've got something good there. You got Gabe Jackson and Phil Haynes competing at left guard. I can live with that. You got, hopefully you sign somebody to push Curhan, but we'll get to that down the line. But you got Curhan over there, and he's looking promising. But you need a left tackle, and you need a center. And don't cheap out here. Jake Heaps has already gone on record saying, I think we're just going to bring back Dwayne Brown. And I feel like Jake Heaps is kind of there to just make everybody think less of Carroll because he's in the Wilson camp. So I don't know if that's just him trying to make us all hate Carroll more than we already do, but I don't know how seriously to take that. But Jake Heaps has already gone on record saying, yeah, we're just going to bring back Dwayne Brown. Don't even get your hopes up.
That would be a mistake. That would be a mistake.
Yeah, definitely. But if you don't, then you got to get somebody because there is no way you can go into 2022 with Stone Forsyth as your starting left tackle. And there's no way you can have it be Jamarco Jones either. So you got to get somebody new.
Yeah, and again with the option that's out there, which I'm sure this has been one of our uniformed agreements for a while going back now, Brendon, and we've had our eye on this guy, but it's honestly not that bad of a left tackle option free agent market as it probably stands anyway. Say nothing of if there's potentially some guys that get cut. For me, the guy that I lock in on, I agree with everything you said, by the way, which is left tackle and center. Let's make this the priority. I would love, and again, as you said, the head of this, moving Damian Lewis to right guard would be great. The one guy I wanted to mention to you that we haven't talked about a little bit, who's sort of becoming a little bit of my dream target here in this respect a bit, but it's probably completely unrealistic because the Jaguars have a gazillion dollars to spend and they want to protect their young quarterback, and so they're going to overpay this guy, which is Andrew Norwell. And the Jaguars are going to be about due to have to make a decision on this guy. He is a purified. He's like the fresh mountain water streams that came off the glaciers. He is as left guard gets. He's not a right guard that moves to left guard. He is a left guard. And he has had the highest run. He'll appeal to Carroll. Stick with me on this for just one. Highest run block win rate of any left guard in football last year. Ooh, Carroll will like that. And top 10 pass block win rate. I throw my wallet. Would you here's my first thing. Would you, if you could throw your wallet at that in Armstead, do that, or would you lean to doing that or center as a kind of priority?
I would go left tackle and center. I think maybe I'm a little too high on him, but I think you can live with Gabe. I can live with Gabe Jackson starting for another year, but I can't live with Posick starting for another year. I can't live with it. I can't live with it. And I really can't live with Kyle Fuller being the backup center for another year, too, by the way.
That's true. Yeah. Ethan should be the backup, and then you get the go get exactly from somewhere else. Yeah.
Right. But I'll say this. The left tackle market is not particularly fat this offseason. You've got the gold medal, Teron Armstead, who I think could be, I mean, the injuries are going to hurt, but you're still probably looking at least $20 million a year, possibly 25. I'll say 20 because he missed some games last year, but he's the only blue chipper. He's the only guy you can look at and go, that guy can transform my offense, in my opinion. And he's only going to be 31, so age is not a big deal yet. Past that, you've got Cam Robinson from Jacksonville, who is probably going to get a fat paycheck of his own, but I don't know how good he is.
He's well, and we're talking about we're going to need mobility. Teron Armstead gives you mobility. Cam's that big. He's that big Carpenter type lineman, right? Alabama lineman, right? That type of they're just this honking. I can't remember if I think he went to Alabama, but he's just that big, just can't move, but he's gonna maul that guy mano a mano.
It was either Alabama or Auburn or one of
Yeah,
those.
yeah, exactly. You know what I'm saying? Just the, just big and just like that. They don't, but they're not going to move in space, which is we've got to have, I think, a little bit of an eye towards the mobility element need in
Mhm.
Waldron's system because we ignored it wholeheartedly kind of last off season. You kind of need to address that within the lineman you target.
All right. So past those two guys, I only have one more name: Eric Fisher, UFA from the Colts, just turned 31, still good, had a good season in Indy.
Mm-hmm.
They have money, so they might keep him. They have plenty of money in Indy.
Mm-hmm.
But if he becomes available, I think that would be a reasonable option. I would not feel too bad about it.
Yeah.
But after that, you actually kind of start talking yourself into, well, maybe Dwayne Brown isn't so bad because he's one of the best options left at that point. It's like Nate Soldier, who has spent the last 4 years in New York embarrassing himself once he separated from Bill Belichick. You're hoping that George Fant gets cut by the Jets. And I like George Fant, and he's been good for the Jets. I don't know if he's really good enough to do what we're talking about here, where we have all this money to spend. I don't know if bringing in a George Fant is going to get people excited. Like, he'll be good, but I don't know about anything more than that.
George Fant doesn't do a lot for me. And again, we're again another place where we're kind of in the same spot. You need to upgrade this offensive line, and getting just by on it is not upgrading it. This is where I have my issues with bringing back Dwayne Brown. It may end up putting you in that sort of likely spot where you're stuck and you're like, well, we just have to bring him back. And if that's the case, like it just from a tactical standpoint, Brendon, it was like, well, we're going to have to overpay by $5 million a year to bring in Teron Armstead, or $7 million a year extra to bring him in, or he wasn't even interested, or whatever the reasoning process would be, which I don't know if that's really this certainty, but we'll give him the benefit of the doubt on that. Then you do have another pathway to go then at addressing left guard, center, right tackle, then in those other places. And I will say this with Fisher. I think he's going to be a guy who's going to be available because of the fact, look at what the Colts have done. They do have a lot of money to spend, but as we talked about, you got to positional balance load the salary cap amongst your positional units. You can't just stack everything into one unit because you're going to go weaker at another place too much of a degree where you're not competitive there. They're already paying their right tackle. They're paying Glowinski, or not. He's a free agent now, but they're paying their center and they're paying their left guard top money in the sport. You do go to a point on that of how much you kind of need to have a couple of young guys mixed in there as well on low contracts to balance that a bit. I feel like, from their standpoint, especially because they have to figure out their quarterback situation. They need some pass catchers. Mo Alley Cox, as you said, the tight end, they got to address him. And then their defense is good, but they still probably need another couple parts and pieces.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree with that, but Eric Fisher's good, and he's not that old yet, so it wouldn't surprise me if they just went, you know what, let's just throw all our money into the offensive line and hope that Carson Wentz can whatever himself. I mean, maybe that's one of the reasons why you let him go. You realize this Wentz thing isn't going to work out, so let's not have a God mode offensive line now when we can't even take advantage of it. I guess that's possible, but I don't know if they would think about things like that.
Yeah, I memean, they're stuck in a weird pickle, Brendon. They have money to spend, but they can't be sold on their quarterback where it's at right now. They've got great parts on their team, but you need to get better at your quarterback, and that means where are you going to do it? How are you going to? Kirk Cousins going to come in there? Is he the answer for them? And that's where I think they're going to trying to do something like that where they don't have a great option A, so they're down to option like B on that. I do have an outside the box one for you on this left tackle as I was going through the books today. And as you probably noticed, the Titans were one of those teams that was surprisingly to me a little bit over the cap in their situation. And when I was looking at their roster, they've got A.J. Brown and Jeffrey Simmons coming up for contract extensions this offseason. They can't really move off of the Julio Jones deal last year. And in fact, when you look at all of their top money deals on their board, none of their guys they can really move off from. The guy that stood out to me maybe, and this is just, again, outside the box, coming up for about a contract extension for them as well, probably about due, Taylor Lewan. What do you think about that as an option?
That's not bad either. That would probably be about as good as Eric Fisher.
Right.
And by the way, as long as we're living in this world, the Cowboys, also over the cap, Tyron Smith may end up falling on the axe for that. So he's kind of in a similar boat. Good veteran left tackle. He's not perfect anymore. He's a little injury prone, but those are some of the ways you could kind of push this can down the road. Just like go get one of these veterans and be like, just give me a couple good years while we try to figure out the long-term solution, which might be Stone Forsythe, might not be. We don't know. But it buys us a little bit of time to figure that out.
Yeah.
And I guess that's okay. But all things being equal, I want to get the guy who's going to lock down that side of the offensive line for the next 3 to 4 years, which is Teron Armstead.
Which is why I think we both are. This is the one guy of any of our guys on this list. We're going to be pretty frugal around the whole list here, but this is the one spot we would go a little over the top to get him. We will pay if it takes more to bring him to Seattle. If you're in competition with other offers, because this has been one of the things that's restricted us in recent years in free agency, at least according to what we've heard from the front office, which is that we have a price, we have a line, we draw it in the sand, we'll pay up to this spot of the line. When you go past, when negotiations are driven past that by the competitions of other teams, we will not go up to that mark. We come to a stop at that point and say no more. And this is a spot where now you need to go past your line on this one a little bit, because it is so important to get this guy in here. And you wonder, it's like on the first year cap hit of a Teron Armstead on a new deal, which on my rough estimate, when I was looking at it, you had a 4-year, $92 million deal for him. Mailata from Jordan Mailata from the Eagles signed his new deal, right? He set the market at left tackle. The first year cap hit for him is $5 million. Then I looked at Trent Williams. He signed a $23 million on average per year deal. The first year cap hit on his deal is $8.1 million. Okay, so you could sign a 4-year, let's say $92 million deal to Teron Armstead, give him a crap load of bonus money. You could be then having the first year cap hit at $9 million, which if you're bringing back Dwayne Brown, Brendon, and we're talking about bringing back Brown and go, oh, okay, Dwayne, you're not going to make 13 like you did last year. You're not going to be 11, 12, 13, but what do you make? Wasn't 11, 12, 13 million, something in that range? We're going to ask you to come back and make 5 million. Well, okay. What's better? Dwayne Brown at 37 years old at $5 million, or Teron Armstead for $4 million more at your left tackle of 5-6 years younger? And that's, to me, where we get to the no-brainer element of a little bit more overpay, because it's not like Dwayne Brown's going to come back from a 1-year, $2 million deal. He ain't coming back for a 1-year, $3 million deal. You're going to have to give him some coin. He's going to want to, he's been up at a high water mark for a long period of time. These guys are, maybe it will, Brendon, maybe he'll be like, I just want to win. I don't care about money anymore. I just want to win. So I'll take a $3 million left tackle deal. Do you think you'd do that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. I think there are definitely ways around the bigger cap hits down the line. Like, a great example, the Saints are actually going to be paying Teron Armstead $13 million against the cap this year, despite the fact that he won't be playing for them. Now, I'm not saying the Seahawks should do that, but those are the kinds of things you can do to make this more palatable.
Yeah.
Because the cap is just going up.
100%. Well, so we both like Teron Armstead. We got a couple other good secondary options. And okay, if we got to take Dwayne Brown, then we're on to plan tactical B as it goes to the offensive line being, okay, I'll invest in other places across the board there. I can't get to the left tackle, so we'll just take the alternative route in order to build this offensive line in the other places, kind of. I know you're saying stay with Gabe, so I'm good there. But let's look at the center position. Mm-hmm. Who's your Teron Armstead of centers right now that you'd love to throw the wallet at?
I mean, the most fun option would, of course, be Jason Kelce, because he's perfect for this offense. I think he would really help Rashad Penny. I think he would unlock a new level for Rashad Penny to get to. I don't think he's going to be that expensive, because last year he signed 1 year, $9 million, and he's a year older. Now, having to sign him to a 1-year deal, if that's what he wants, that kind of sucks, because you can't push any of the money into a future year. But maybe you could give him something like 2 years, $16 million, 3 years, 23, 24 million, and backload the crap out of it. Like, he is an older player. I know I think he made All Pro this year, or he was on the list.
Yeah.
But I don't think he's going to get monster offers. So Jason Kelce would be fun. He's at the age where you do have to be a little bit concerned, but I think he'll be okay for a little while longer. I mean, the cliff usually doesn't go from all pro to crap in one off season, unless you're Walter Jones.
Right. And can you explain, because I know most folks know in our audience, they're very smart on this, what you mean by he would be perfect for the Seahawks, as far as him in particular?
Well, he is maybe the greatest move center that I've ever seen. He might be one of the greatest move blockers that I've ever seen in my life. He plays phenomenally well in space. I have a friend who is an Eagles fan. One time he said that Jason Kelce, in a way, is kind of like Steph Curry. He does things that nobody else can do, and it completely changes the way defenses have to play him. Like every other player in basketball, if they dribble over the half-court line, pull up from 35 feet away and shoot, you're okay with that. But if Curry does it, you got to get up on him. You can't give him that shot because he's going to nail it.
Yeah.
Kelce, if he's making blocks at the second and third level, he is doing things that no other center, maybe in NFL history, has done. I know that sounds like hyperbole. I don't think it is. He is different. So that's great for the Waldron offense.
And there, the beautiful exclamation point on that point being, this is what the Waldron offense needs. Why Brendon's, 100% agree with Brendon just said as well. There's maybe the Steelers back in the day had one of the original centers that could pull in space, which was amazing. And there's been a couple of guys that have come down the track who've been pretty good, but he definitely, and when you see him, it really stands out with Kelce in particular is when you see him on the all-22, right? You'll see some of those Twitter cut-up shots. I'm sure you've seen, Brendon, of him on that 22 moving out in space. You're like, whoa, he's getting 15, 20 yards up the field, and he's getting laying the block. The guy's not juking him out of his shoes once he gets out there that far in space. He's still very comfortable. And there's a reason why his brother's been one of the more athletic tight ends in the game as well here, going back, for over 10 years here now in the league. So there's not a better center, again, to Brendon's point, not a better schematic center fit for the Seahawks this offseason. Probably not in the draft, outside of maybe like the top kid center out of the draft, obviously the guy that might go top 15. Outside of him, there may not be a better fit for this offense with the centers that are available out there. I think you've got a great option, though. You bring up the key with him. I don't think there's any problem with the money aspect because you can bury some of the money. He won't cost as much because he's going to be 35 years old. The injury element does come up into play, though. Does have a little bit of injury history, and he's getting older, and it becomes a risk, which if you're bringing back Posick, you have a little bit of insurance there. The guy I was looking at as maybe an alternative if you can't get Kelce or you've got that worry on the risk was obviously the name, which would be Ryan Jensen. Not as maybe much of a pure scheme fit, but a mauler, a tough guy. He's going to go out there and play to the whistle type guy. And he's still 30 years old, 31 years old, right around that Corey Linsley spot. I looked at Linsley's deal last year. It was 5 years, $62.5 million. First year cap hit on Linsley's deal. He was the big free agent signing for the Packers to the Chargers last year. $6.6 million is a first year hit. So I had Jensen, and we'd probably be somewhat similar in the same place, even with Kelce with this, right? Even if it's just on a 2-year deal, the numbers would probably fit out somewhat similarly because Kelce's going to be paid high end on a 2-year deal. Jensen, I got 4 years, $65 million, $7.5 million as his first year hit. Give or take maybe $1 million, but I don't think he's going to go significantly over what Linsley did in the market last year. Maybe a little bit. I mean, maybe the 208.8 makes everything go crazy too. I mean, we'll see.
Yeah. Well, I think the center market is pretty decent for buyers this year. If you take a look at it, you've also got Ben Jones, the Titans guy. A lot of Seahawks fans I know are interested in Ben Jones. He's good. He's going to be available because the Titans don't have money. Matt Paradis is pretty good. I don't think he's great or anything, but he's a competent quality starter in the NFL. Even a guy like a Ted Karras, I think, is pretty decent. So you've got some options if you're shopping for a center this offseason. So that might bring the value down a little bit for some of these guys. It might not for a Ryan Jensen because he's probably top dog.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it could bring down a guy like a Kelce a little bit.
And another name in that same line outside the box to watch for on this is a Mitch Morse from Buffalo. Guy coming in just about due for an extension. Again, the Bills, another one of those surprising teams to me as I looked at him like, oh, they're kind of a little closer up against the cap than I had first suspected. And they've got guys in the books that they're not going to be able to get out from under necessarily cap wise, which could lead them to looking at that situation. Now, you're not going to probably want to see them move on from one of their, guy that helps their young quarterback out. But again, just as a name to keep an eye on, a guy that would be a solid baseline option to bring in there. Like the guys you mentioned, all of these guys are upgrades over the top of what you've had in Posick, and in some cases, vast, far superior upgrades over what you've had in Posick recently.
One more name real quick before we move on.
Mm-hmm.
Austin Corbett, he's kind of the forgotten guy because he's actually playing guard for the Rams this year. But I think Austin Corbett can play center, and I don't think there would be any issue with that. I think he played center in college. I could be wrong about that, but Austin Corbett would be a decent pull the emergency cord option. I think he's good.
Yeah, we can go with that. I mean, there's definitely some spots there you can fill in. So I had another guy too, is Chris Lindstrom, another guy to keep an eye on guard center kind of stuff there. More of a guard, but another guy that's, he's coming up for a contract renewal. The Falcons are in tough shape right now with their salary cap situation. So another guy, if they want, these are be more real outside the box, getting creative options. But if they were to flip a pick, hey, here's a third rounder, we can pull this guy in. We don't have to give up the second rounder. We can still keep that and then invest it in the line. But then we've got one of our other line positions solidified with an upper level guy at that point. I kind of like that if they use it in that way. You know what I mean? Go get a guy that's still young, coming up into maybe just coming out of his rookie contract, up for an extension, not yet hit the market. So you have some leverage over that. He's not a pure free agent. You're trading, like, let's say a third round pick because they can't get as much. I don't know. Maybe it's unrealistic. Again, these teams like to keep their linemen now. So these guys might not be as willing to pony him up. All right, let's go. What's your next spot on your plan? Let me get this real quickly, Brendon, because it's driving me nuts. 1 second.
No problem.
I got ADHD on this stuff, man.
It's cool. It's cool. I understand. I've that's why I have blue screen.
I know.
You never have to worry about stuff like that.
I need to embrace the blue screen.
Okay, so next for me, the next position of high need at the moment would be 3 tech, because we literally do not have one. We literally don't have one unless we're really going to try this Pune experiment again, which I really hope is not the case.
Please no.
Unfortunately, the free agency class for 3 tech kind of reeks. It's not good. Okay, so running through a couple of names that I would be okay with, and then also at the same time admitting that it's not going to happen. Number 1 would be Larry Ogunjobi from the Bengals, who had 7 sacks last year, 16 QB hits, nice pass rush up the middle, but the Bengals have a ton of cap space. I don't know why they would let him go. I don't know why they would do that.
Just franchise him.
Yeah, if they do, then yes, sign me up for that. But he's the one heavy hitter that I see here. Now, the Bengals do have another defensive tackle by the name of BJ Hill, who is also a free agent. He had 6 sacks last year. Maybe they let him go, but again, they don't have to because they have all this cap space. Now, they got to build an offensive line for Burrow because he is making, I'm sorry, Joe Burrow's offensive line this year looks like one of the Tom Cable, Russell Wilson lines, where it's just like invisible. Like, people think Wilson's playing behind a bad offensive line right now. Go look at what Joe Burrow is dealing with every single game. It's unbelievable. And he wins playoff games somehow. I don't understand it.
It's why you should know, and people that argue this, it's why Burrow's a legit. This is not flash in the pan city here. This is to get this done with the elements he's dealing with is amazing. He's getting pounded the same rate that like a Russell Wilson is, but yet throwing for like 500-yard games.
Right. And the only other guy who's jumped out to me, and I didn't look at everybody, but I did look at a decent chunk of them, would be our old buddy Quentin Jefferson, who had a pretty good year for the Vegas Raiders this year. He had 5 sacks, averaging over a QB hit a game. Not bad, but he's certainly not moving the needle. He'll allow Puna to move back to 1 tech, which that moves the needle, but he himself does not move the needle. Other than that, after you get through those 3 guys, you're down to guys like, I don't even know, guys that most of us have never even heard of. Guys like Austin Johnson from the Giants or Tyquan Lewis from the Colts. Just nobody's replacement level. Maybe they improve a little bit, but you're not getting a whole lot there. So I'm going to say it right here, right now. We need to address 3 tech through the draft probably, but I'm not seeing a whole lot in this free agency class.
Let me give you two names, one in free agency, one via trade as a realist. And again, I know that you got these trades, but a couple of these teams, as we'll talk, I want to touch on at the end of this a little bit, is where some teams are in their cap space situation, which could drive these trades. Not because the teams want to make them, not because they're going to be needing the draft capital, not because they want to move on from the player because he's bad, but because they've got themselves up into a bind as far as their salary cap situation is concerned. So the first guy in free agency, which would you bring him as a rotational guy, which I wouldn't be in on this, but it's just an interesting name. It's a guy that John Schneider has had a lot of favor for a long period of time. And though he has played defensive end, he's played a little bit of that, 3-4 defensive end / fourth. He's kind of been all over, and they've had him inside. I've seen at times. I know the Cardinals did back in the day. And that's, can you work in Calais Campbell out of that 3-tech from time to time as a pass rush only guy and as a limited snap guy within the rotation? You wouldn't have him out there early downs, for instance, but I'd have him in there basically on passing downs to provide that pass rush up the middle. Too old for you?
I mean, if the price is right, sure. There's definitely a price that I would be willing to go for on a Calais Campbell, because Calais Campbell's had an awesome career, great player, awesome player, but he is definitely a little too old for me to make any real investment into. So
But 1 year,
you got to
$5
do
million.
something else. Oh, I don't know. That to me is, I don't like that. I don't think I like it.
No, fair enough. I figured on that. So it's all good. Here's my plan B for you. All right. Again, looking at the Falcons cap situation and where they're standing right now. Grady Jarrett. There's quite a bit of money that the Atlanta Falcons, a guy that I know you've probably heard as well from many Seahawks fans advocating, trying to get this guy for years, in my year on this stuff, a guy that is a really brilliant 3-tech. He's actually what I thought was hoping Poona Ford could kind of round out to when they move. It is his best case scenario. When they moved him to 3-tech, he's not going to be that. But bringing him in on a renegotiate, you'd bring him in not on the current cap he'd cost. So the Falcons would move him, save the cap space. You'd sign him to a new deal then, bringing him in. But I think in the fact that you'd have to sign him to that new deal would remove down how much you'd have to give him in draft capital. What I'm targeting with this, Brendon, is that 3rd round pick. You keep the 2nd rounder in frame, but that 3rd round pick used to potentially make this kind of trade for not a guy that's like a Jamal Adams trade or like a Graham trade. I'm talking about pure fits for pure scheme. Fit for fit. 3-tech is what this guy's been rolling. Most of his greatest work was done under Dan Quinn's defense, which is Coach Carroll's defense. As that 3-tech, he knows exactly what he needs to do from day one. Comes in, not that old. The cost wouldn't be to me through the roof necessarily. But again, we're talking about wanting to make the investment. Here's a place to make investment when there's not options on the free agent market. And I'm not sure that there's options, Brendon, that could hit the ground running in this draft. I haven't admittedly looked through all the guys, but where you're going to be picking at in this draft, I don't know that there's 3-tech options in this draft that are going to hit the ground running. Look at this last draft, for instance. There was maybe 2 guys like Levi from UW. How do you do in this first year? 2 sacks. We need more out of that in our first year out of our 3-tech. We can't wait for those guys to develop when we're in the make or break it year and when we're playing it for a position that's been so seriously miserly recently, and that it's since Michael Bennett's really not produced anything for us.
Well, I like the idea. My issue would be that Grady Jarrett didn't exactly light the world on fire in 2021. So you have to wonder if maybe he's past his prime. I'm looking at the numbers right now. He had 1 sack in 17 games, 12 QB hits, and 17 pressures, which is basically what you got from Poona at 3-tech last year anyway. Now, if you could talk yourself into he had a down year because of X, Y, and Z, then I would love it. I think Grady Jarrett was really good for those few years when he did hit his prime, but it does strike me as something where the Falcons might be looking for some sucker to take on the rest of that contract.
Well, that's where I
have
say
to talk through that.
That's why I say I wouldn't make the deal on taking on the contract. I'd want a renegotiation to current market standards of rates of how he's playing. I think he's still going to cost a bit of money, but he's not going to cost the price that he's currently on. I do as well think the component I think about with pass rushers when I see depression on them in a given year versus previous years is I go, okay, were they on a bad team that had teams that was playing against them that were running the ball a lot and working the clock and just trying up by points a lot of the time. So they weren't passing a lot and putting them in that position as much to get those pass rush opportunities. And I don't know if that's the case with them. I'm just asking. So I'm not saying I know that is what was going on, but that'd be my wonder with Atlanta being the team they were this year. If that was not maybe some of the case as well, maybe playing too many snaps, being that there's not a lot of other guys on that defensive line for Atlanta that's doing much any work. Certainly Dante Fowler wasn't for the big pay money guy that he was supposed to be on that other side. So I'm with you. I'm not paying a market rate. I'm going to bring him down. I'm going to sign him to a new deal. You tear up that deal. Basically, the Falcons don't care from their standpoint. They get their pick. They're off the hook of the money. They get some relief on that standpoint. They don't have to trade Matt Ryan, right? Or whatever is being talked about. I don't still understand where that stuff's coming from, but I'm I would love this move from that standpoint. I think you could tap back into this guy and get, I think, a couple. He's not that old. He's only like what, 30 years old. So
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
you know,
He's not old at all. Actually, I believe, yeah, he's going to be 29 this year. So not even 30. I like the idea. I think that might be the best way forward, because I looked at Fletcher Cox and it's not happening. The Eagles have actually completely married themselves to Fletcher Cox for the foreseeable future.
They took a blood oath, Brendon, what's known as a blood oath. So yeah, it's and the one thing too is I don't know what the Falcons run defensively now, but I do think they changed their defense up from when Quinn left, and I don't know if he's as much of a fit there as an undersized 3 tech in that defense as he would be an R4-3 under type defense, which can fit that guy more suitably into the 3 tech role, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's very possible. The only thing I would say is it seems like well, maybe not, because you can say they moved off this because of the Julio trade. I was going to say it seems like the Falcons are kind of delusionally married to the idea of this core being able to win.
No,
Which
you're
is
right.
why they
No,
restructured the hell out of Matt Ryan, and they're married to him stupidly when they would give anything to move off of him at this point. But
well, think about this at their lane and wait. Just think about this for just a sec. You're sitting there in Atlanta. Carolina ain't competing with you, even though you're bad as you are. You look at the Saints. Peyton's going to take a year off. You know, where are they at right now? And then you look at Tampa Bay, your juggernaut. What if Tom Brady retires? What if Tom Brady signs somewhere else? You know, what if he goes somewhere, like very real possibilities? Where do they sit now in that division? Tampa Bay, no Tom Brady. Saints, no Sean Payton. Carolina Panthers, what they are. You know, they're still looking for their franchise quarterback, their offense, looking to move McCaffrey. And they could be looking at it from that standpoint. To your point, I mean, they could be. They're crazy for doing so, Brendon. They shouldn't be doing this right now. They're dumb. They should have been rebuilding last year. Again, you talk about teams waiting too long to get like the guy standing at the dance where everybody's got the partner taken. Like, you just need to go home, buddy. You know what I mean? Like, no one, you're not going to get a dance there. There's no more women left. So, it's a little bit like that here. I feel like, to a degree, with Atlanta, but they may be all in. They may push their chips into it. I will say what may push the Grady Jarrett move is that they're right with that cap situation, where when we talk about, what is it? We've got 10 teams, or I think there's 11 teams over the cap right now. He's somewhere in that neighborhood. It's only about 9. But there's a lot of teams that are over the cap, and they've got to not just get up under the cap by like $100,000, Brendon, right? They've got to get up under the cap by like $6, $7, $8 million, not to go sign free agents, just to have the money to sign their own draft picks and sign their practice squad guys and that type of thing. Say nothing of their future, of their RFAs, they're restricted free agents.
Okay. And unfortunately, I think that's all we can say about 3-tech, because the options are razor thin. It will not surprise me if we end up re-signing Quentin Jefferson, or, well, not re-signing, but signing him and saying that's going to be our 3-tech. And unfortunately, this is the area where you can really improve the pass rush for the most part. People, I mean, I see it in the chat. I see it in my comments. People talk, we got to sign pass rush, got to sign pass rush. But a lot of the people they bring up are Leos. I don't think our Leo spot is the problem at all going into this offseason. We got Darrell Taylor, who looks like he's going to be the next Von Miller, maybe. And you still got Dunlap, who caught fire at the end of the season and hopefully can keep that energy going. And you still have Alton Robinson. We don't know what he's going to be yet. To me, if you're trying to improve the pass rush, it starts at 3-tech, and there just aren't great options, really.
No, there's not. And maybe to your point, there's a dime in the rough in the draft. There are guys that come along that, like a Chris Jones, wasn't taken top. He's taken the second round midway through. If you drafted a Chris Jones type to your defense at the tackle position, that would definitely, help this defense out by a considerable leaps and bounds. To your point, I think nothing would have a bigger impact than be able to start to generate some pass rush from within. What about Sue? We didn't talk about him yet.
The cliff is coming with that guy.
Yeah.
You know it's coming.
That
feels like
it kind of arrived a little this year, it seems like.
Yeah. I mean, beggars can't be choosers, but I'd really rather not.
Yeah.
And I don't like Sue. I got to be straight up honest. That's not going to be the deal breaker. If we have to sign him, then sign him, but I don't like him.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. The age and just I'm good. I'm just, let's go a different direction. We have a need there. Let's move somewhere else. Where are we at on your phrase? We got your free agent list. We've attacked. We got running back, tight ends. We've addressed a little bit here. We got to the left tackle, got to center. We've now taken a look at 3 tech here to low Drake. What's your next spots you're targeting on?
Well, to me, the next position of big need this offseason is cornerback. But here's my thing. I can't, if we're going to spend big money at corner, just bring back Reed.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to do that. So a lot of people say JC Jackson. I'm not having it. No, JC Jackson's going to be, I don't know. He's going to be more expensive than Reed. He's probably going to be like, not Ramsey, but he's going to be probably in that 15 million a year. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's getting 15 million a year plus. So no, absolutely not. If we choose to let Reed go, and let's say we bring back Sidney Jones, because that's going to be relatively easy to do. And we decide we need to bring in a cornerback to give us some insurance for Trey Brown because he got hurt. It should not be one of these high profile guys.
Agreed.
Carroll, I'm sorry, but this is what you do. You need to go do it again. If we bring in a veteran cornerback, it should be somebody that I'm not that familiar with, or somebody I'm not really thinking about right now. Somebody low down the list, another DJ Reed, another Sidney Jones, another reclamation project that is not on people's minds.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know who it would be, but I know that guy is out there somewhere, and Carroll just needs to find him.
Agreed. This is like we talked about with the running backs. This is the 2 clear positions on the team that you can go a little light with. You play a lot of zone. You don't play a lot of man-to-man. Why go spend this money for these guys that you're spending all this money for a guy like Stephon Gilmore, who's a great man-on-man cover corner. You're going to have him sit in zone for 80-90% of his snaps and have him wasting away out there, and maybe he's still able to give you some impact. He's not a bad player at that point, but it's just a little bit of money better spent in other areas that can have bigger impact on the football team in this given defense and on the way this team operates. What's kind of your, this has been a one I've gone back and forth with a little bit. Where's your dollar amount sit with DJ Reed on your make or break spot of, I can't go past this on Reed? Here's where I'm at. I still land it for me like a 4-year, $24 million deal is kind of like in my, I can't push kind of past that, though I probably should. Where do you sit with it?
I would say I could go 3 years, 20 million, or 4 years, 25 million, something like that. So pretty close to you.
Yeah.
And look, that might be possible. He's 5'9" and he plays outside corner. That might be a non-starter for a lot of these teams. Yeah. And the cornerback free agency list is not bad. You've got Stephon Gilmore, Joe Hayden, the good version of Kyle Fuller. Patrick Peterson's a free agent again. You got Xavier Rhodes, who I think is a decent veteran option. You got Witherspoon, who turned into Deion Sanders at the end of the season. You got, like I said, J.C. Jackson, Shavarius Ward. I think I pronounced that right. Yeah, so you've got decent options. You've got decent cornerback options to sign. So maybe you will see DJ Reed kind of end up with no girl to dance with, and he'll just go back to Seattle for $6 million a year. But yeah, I'm not going beyond that.
And also maybe to your list as well, a guy I think who'll be a cut candidate because the Giants are in cap hell a little bit. I think they might be releasing James Bradbury where they stand. He might be a guy on the market as well in addition to those guys.
Is he a nickel corner?
No, he's outside.
Okay.
Pure outside. You're thinking of their other 2 guys. They've got 2 other guys in their squad that both play nickel. So that's why you're thinking he's nickel. They signed both of them to Logan Ryan and the Adoree Jackson they signed over there.
I will say this. If we do sign a veteran cornerback as like a stopgap for the Trey Brown thing, I would definitely need to find somebody who's willing to play for less. But Xavier Rhodes is kind of interesting to me because he's been really good lately. If you could get him a little cheaper than you expect, I would be okay with that. Just like a short-term deal for not a lot of money, bring him in for a year. And if Trey Brown comes back, then you move on. And if Trey Brown never recovers, then you have somebody who can kind of be a stopgap. So yeah, that's my philosophy here.
No, I like the Xavier Rhodes. Big cornerback, fits into that profile. Your scheme protects up against his weaknesses, which is a little bit of the speed. You know, if you get him matched up, he needs a little bit of space there to keep him a little cushion. He's a little cushion, Brendon, just a little bit, but he's fine if you give him a little bit with that. And he's a good tackler still, relatively speaking. So I think he's an interesting name to take a look at. What do you do like free safety? I know we're not good. We've already arrived to the point where I think, look, if Quandre Diggs, maybe he goes out and like DJ Reed here, maybe he goes out into the market and finds it to be very cold for a guy that's very specialized to just certain schemes and coming off an injury and getting older. What's your plan of attack for the free safety position this offseason? With knowing, again, understanding you're looking to put a lot of resources in other places.
I'm calling up Devin McCourty and seeing if he wants to play for a 1-year cheap deal because he's old and he's already won his rings. He's already done what he's going to do. I'm calling up Devin McCourty and seeing if he wants to play for relatively cheap. If not, then I'm kind of looking at the draft and I'm asking Carroll to do what he does.
Yeah. That's fair enough.
Not what he did when he drafted Tedrick Thompson. I mean the other stuff. Carroll.
And not the Lano Hill thing either, right? Not the Lano Hill thing. That either.
Yeah. Right. So, I mean, there are probably a couple other guys who would be okay, but again, to me, like, some people are saying you should bring in a guy like a Marcus Williams or even a Marcus May, but aren't you going to spend basically what you spend on Quandre plus?
Yeah.
So
that's, I mean, and yeah, I mean, if you're going to spend that money, spend it on Quandre, especially in May's case, in my opinion, because he's coming off the major injury. And then Marcus Williams, you're spending even more than you'd be spending on Diggs, which makes it even more impossible to me of him even being a potential target for us to be looking at, because that would just take your safety numbers to the stratosphere. And look, I know Quandre's played good here on a relatively modest deal that we've been spending like $6 million a year on him. Bradley McDougall came in here and played the free safety role pretty well, had him on a relatively modest deal. We've had good play out of that safety position without having to pay through the moon for it, just in general.
Yeah, I agree. And by the way, not that I'm counting on it at all. You still have Marquise Blair kicking around trying to find his place in the NFL. Could end up being the guy there. I'm not ruling it out. I'm not betting on it. I'm not ruling it out. And at a certain point, you need to let him have a chance because you did spend a top 50 pick on him. Sorry. You gotta.
If you know he's coming back 100%, if the doctors are saying look, this isn't the same thing as the ACL. It was a minor tear in there that we repaired. He's going to come back 100% by the start of training camp. And this is a coaching staff going into this offseason. Does that change the way you attack the free safety position in aggressiveness?
I think it has to. I think it has to. You have a limited number of resources at the end of the day.
Okay.
So
I agree with
buy
you
on that.
I agree with you. So I'm in lockstep on that one. Let me really quickly. We've had a few different donos in here, and I just want to acknowledge this if I can really quickly. Spectre7, thank you for the $5 donation, sir. I salute you. He says, "Oh, hey, I caught you guys live. I'm sorry if this has been discussed ad nauseum, but I really want a better pass rush, especially if we sign Diggs." Well, that's the one thing is that if you move on, like you signing Diggs means it probably comes at the expense of signing somebody else for the pass rush. Did you have any defensive ends we didn't talk about? Was there any defensive ends you saw in the second tier level? I know you're not necessarily looking to probably throw because you feel pretty good about where you sit with Taylor and Dunlap, and that I think we both admit the $900,000 savings. You're not moving on from Dunlap. You got Robinson on the come. You need to add to it, but who do you have at that spot to kind of add within?
Well, to me, the spot to add there would be at 5 tech because I like Kerry Hyder, but you need more. And Rasheem Green probably won't be back, probably shouldn't be back. So you need to add on to that. And obviously the prize would be Jadeveon Clowney because he just had a great year.
Thank you.
And I mean, Clowney.
You just made my day on that, just saying that. I had it on my notes, man. Sorry, but that was awesome. Yeah. Go.
Yeah. Bring in Clowney. I don't know how much he's going to cost. He's probably going to cost a lot, but you know what? Good pass rushers in the NFL are going to cost a lot. Deal with it. Unless they're Cliff Averill, who for some reason played for half of his actual value. Don't know what motivated that guy, but it was something other than money.
Amen. And I it's just thank you, Brendon, because you hit this on the head with this where I was right. He's on my notes here, and I had Clowney. I had him down at 2 years, $20 million.
If you could do that, I'm all over that. I would be ecstatic to give him 2 years, $10 million to play 5 tech.
Yeah.
Which, if you're bringing him in, that's what he's going to do, right? He's not going to take snaps from Taylor or like he's not going to fit in at Leo. Well,
and you can move. The thing with Clowney is you can move him literally all across the defensive line. He's not just a this or a that. You can put him anywhere. He's played everywhere. He's literally stood up over the guard before in a pass rushing role as a normal thing within the defense when he was under Vrabel. So, he can do anything to me. I think with his injury history, he's not super old. He's only 29 years old, but people are not going to give him a lot of money with the injury history thing there. But he had a good year last year. Why? Because he was finally not being double and triple teamed as much as he had in his previous time in his career, where every time he was doing somewhat good, he always the only guy on the defensive line getting it done. So the teams could put a lot of, and then it drove down his sack numbers. And so everybody goes, oh, he can't pass rush. And it's like, look, he's not an amazing pass rusher, but he's a great all around player, excellent run defender and a good pass rusher. And you could add that into the mix here well without having to spend through the roof.
Yeah. In a future episode, we're probably going to talk a little more about the 5-tech need, but if you want a sneak preview of that, I would say Clowney.
Yes, I'm with you on that. And thank you, Spectre7. Charles Riley, what's up, Charles? He's thank you for the $5 donation. He says, nice digs, Brando. Is that a picture of Jack Patera holding you as an infant in the background? Good to see you two streaming. That would be my father. But I guess Jack Patera. Yes, no, it's Jack Patera. That's a much better story. I like that. Jack Patera there. There's Daddy. There's my pops. And I'm glad you like the new digs. Thank you for the donation, Charles. Always in the chat, and thanks for bearing with me here. I got way behind on this a little bit. Seahawks Primo, thank you for the $5 donation, says Dwayne Brown didn't look so good. Defensive ends were flying by him. Brendon, is he going to be able to handle pass rushers going forward here? Do we really feel like another year's age? I mean, can Russell feel comfortable with that? He had to watch the tape this year at times and see Brown just getting. I mean, he wasn't bad. It was over. You said this before. It's a little overstated, right? He got better as the year went on. He settled it down. But is there some worry on your part with that in bringing him back?
Well, on the positive side of things, is it possible that Dwayne Brown's holdout made him start slow, and then once he got back into game shape, he was good again? Is it possible that him holding out because he wanted more money or extension or whatever, is that the problem? Maybe if you give him that, now you have to give him his contract before he even shows up. Now you have to give it to him in March because that's when free agency starts, or April, I guess. You're not going to have to worry about that. So that's me being positive. However, the point I'm trying to get here is there's no upside with Dwayne Brown. He was good last year. He was good. I would say last year he was a top 15 left tackle, but I don't think he was top 8. He's somewhere between 9 and 15.
Yeah.
Above average, good, solid, but he's not going to get better than that. Like what? He's going to suddenly at 37 get better? No, that almost never happens. He's either going to stay the same or get worse. So best case scenario, you have a good left tackle. I would like my best case scenario to be a little better than that. But I will say this, he has a chance to be good in 2022.
And again, just to make sure we're clear, the Seahawks Primo, Brendon, the majority of money that me and Brendon want to spend, our big free agent signing, is being addressed to the left tackle position. We want to go for Teron Armstead. The conditions may not be favorable, even if we're willing to throw a lot of cash at Teron Armstead to still get that done, because as Brendon spoke about, the dearth of options there are at the left tackle position in free agency. You might get left with the devil and that's where they may land with it on that, which if it is what it is. Sometimes you get some control over that stuff. Sometimes you're just kind of stuck with the way the market plays out. And oh my gosh, we got a lot of people. The chat is going on fire tonight here, Brendon. Charles Riley, another $5 donation. He says we need Cordello Patterson, Brando and Brendo. Sign him and use him like the Dirty Birds do. Okay. Let's. What are your thoughts on this?
He would be like our Deebo Samuel, where he's a part running back, part receiver, I guess.
Kick return too?
Yeah, that too. I mean, I guess that's fun. I don't know how much that would cost, but that would definitely take the load off. And that's one thing that I'm really thinking about, because we've got this 17-game season now, and I expect them to expand to 18 games as soon as they humanly possibly can.
Oh, yeah.
So I think about things like that. I really want to build that quality depth. And adding a guy like a Cordell Patterson takes a little bit of a load off a guy like a Rashad Penny and hopefully Marlon Mack or whoever you bring in at running back. I like things like that. So, okay.
And you had no backup option for the fly sweep game, which is an intricate part of this offense this year when Eskridge went down. You tried to run it. Lockett did okay. Swain did. Why is Swain running this? Okay. Then we got Penny Hart trying to do it. And get a guy that can back up Eskridge, a guy with a very rich injury history, to make sure that this component of your offense is not removed on a continual basis when you can build in insurance for it at a very cheap cost. Cordell Patterson, I don't know what he will cost, Brendon, but he's not going to cost a lot. He's an older player. He's a specialist, very specialized in that role. To me, that means that you can get him at a price, but it just takes you the willingness to me. We'll see if they are, you know what I mean? Because again, he's going to Atlanta at that point. He's already kind of down to the bottom of the rungs, I'm sure, just about to where, but he had a good year last year. He was all around solid. He's an upper level kick returner. He's great in the fly sweep game. And then I've always wondered about this too, Brendon, with him. He's always struck me as a guy who could never play wide receiver because he couldn't run routes. He could play with the quarterback and Russell Wilson, who he doesn't need to know how to run route. Russell goes and tells him, hey, run 10 yards and come to a stop, and then just go break off and run in whatever position you want to go run from there, and I'll find you. And the guy's got 4.37 speed coming up out of Tennessee out of college. So he's still got that speed to run by guys. Does he have good hands? No. Might he still drop it? Yeah. But he could be what I'm saying, it's a much more interesting fit to me with Patterson in the secondary versus Ryan, who can't do any of that stuff.
Yeah. And this is going to be a prove it year for Waldron, because I took it easy on Waldron last year, but that's not going to happen this year. If I don't see what I like from the play calling and the general offensive game plan in 2022, I am going to go ahead and look at Waldron and go, hey, what the hell, dude? This is year 2. Come on. So give him no excuse. Give him a guy like a Cordarrelle Patterson and say, have fun.
Yeah, your offense is fully running at this point. We've given you all that you need to do, especially if you've invested in the offensive line. I'm with you. There's not going to be any free passes from Waldron this year, and we did give him a decent amount last year, and understandably so, because you should with first-time coordinators. So we've gone through basically all the positions here. We've gone through likely cuts, where the cap space is at. One thing I wanted to just bring up for perspective on this, Brendon, was there anybody else that we've kind of missed that we haven't talked about that was kind of on your list as far as maybe a possible target goes?
There are going to be others, but we can cover them in the future. In future episodes. But I do want to go over a couple more salary cap things before we move on.
Yes, I do too. And let me lead with mine first, and then we'll hit yours, which is because we were talking about this on chat earlier, and I maybe wanted you to expand on it a little bit, which is what is if you had to kind of sum up right now, what's the salary cap situation in the NFC like right now going forward?
Okay, so as of right now, according to Spotrac, the Seahawks have the 8th most cap space in the league at $43 million. Every team ahead of them is in the AFC. They are all AFC teams. The only teams in the conference that are close to the Seahawks level of cap space right now are Washington, Chicago, and Detroit. That's it. Those are really the only teams in the entire conference that have an above average amount of cap space. Meanwhile, on the other end, you have the New Orleans Saints, who literally might have to just fold their franchise this offseason.
He's not overstating it, folks.
Yeah, they are $72 million over the cap, and I've already looked. I don't know what they do. They don't have players they can cut to save money. The only thing they can do is convert a bunch of players base to bonus, which just means it's going to be worse next year. Eventually, they're going to have a year where they might literally just have to go to Goodell and be like, we can't make this work. Can we forfeit all our games this year and come back next year, please? Like it is bad. And shout out to Mickey Loomis for all the work he did keeping that team competitive, but it's about time for them to get smacked around, and they're about to get smacked around.
Oh, 100%. And not to go on a tangent with this, but can we agree on this misnomer out there that the salary cap is not a real thing, that it's just this fake thing? Because what I feel like the Saints have been this poster child for this over the years, where the Saints are proof that the salary cap's not real. Saints are proof that the salary cap doesn't even da. Well, no, you can keep kicking the can down the road. You can kick it far down the road. If you have a willingness to make every measure of approach to slice and dice and cut and put voidable years onto deals, you can keep kicking. But eventually, the bill does come due. Eventually, you do dial back as a team in order to have to pay that bill. And I would argue, Brendon, they already started it last year, started eating that hit last year, but it's such a large hit. They've been kicking this can for so long, and it's like a wave that keeps getting bigger and bigger from out to sea versus once it finally gets to the shoreline. It kept getting bigger and bigger, and that even though it got a little halved last year, it didn't even set it back a mark to what they still feel this year. And would you not agree with that on this point, or are you a cap doesn't exist person?
The cap is kind of like the Matrix to somebody who is jacking in as a red pill, right? And if you've seen the Matrix, once you go into the Matrix as a red pill, you can bend the rules of reality. You can run up a wall, you can jump really high, you can punch somebody really hard. Yeah. But You can't break it. You can't just delete everything. You can't just kill everybody around you. You can bend it, but you cannot break it.
Yeah.
And if you push your cap hits out, they don't disappear. They're just getting pushed out. And for a team like the Saints, they are about to suffer the consequences of this last, 5 years. I'd say they've been building this up.
Yeah. If not longer, with all the years that they are pushing Breeze's contract and finagling the books with that. But yes, it is a real thing. You can still have years like we're doing now. I mean, it's the price me and Brendon are fully willing to pay at this point. Of we know there'll be some pain down the road. There'll be some pain, but that we'd rather be in a more of a go for it approach or rebuild. Don't get caught between. Decide a lane, pick a lane, and choose a lane and go with it. And that's why we're advocating for using this money now to go for it. But we're not. To just kind of dovetail this really quickly before we get back to your point, because I want you to still talk a little bit more about where these teams are at the NFC as far as the bad cap situation goes. We got the money to spend there. If they want to use it, they can use it. We've not created that wave. I was talking about you said 5 years, 6 years, whatever it was. That wave was starting for the Saints. Seahawks wave has not begun. We're not sitting on any wave right now. We've not been kicking. In fact, we're the opposite. We're rolling money over this year. We've got money. We're not. So we're in the opposite end of the spectrum of where we could just be beginning our wave of pain this off season if we want to be aggressive. I took a long time to explain that. That's where I was trying to get with my point on that, Brendon.
Right. And if you are not willing to do it, then you're not going to be able to compete with these teams because they're all doing it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just the Saints. Like, okay, the Packers, $46 million over the cap. And by the way, it looks like they're going to lose Aaron Rodgers, who, by the way, is going to incur a pretty massive dead cap hit if he goes.
Yep.
Okay. Dallas Cowboys, $21 million over the cap. Half their team is outgoing free agents, I think. Like literally they have 25 outgoing free agents. The Minnesota Vikings are $12 million over the cap. And I don't know what they can do to get out of it because like Kirk Cousins, I think his deal is fully guaranteed. Hunter. I don't know if that's still the case.
Hunter's where they're going to hit. They're going to cut Hunter.
Yeah, but that only gets you so far.
Yeah.
Falcons, $6 million over the cap. Giants, $6 million over the cap, which is hilarious because they were still terrible.
How did they do that? I get that's one of those ones where how'd you guys get yourself in your rookie quarterback?
Yeah.
But
Okay, I am not disputing that this division is going to be a problem in 2022. It's going to be a good division. However, the Rams have no cap space as of right now. They have literally like $200,000, not even enough to pay the janitors. The Cardinals have about $5 million in cap space, which is all going to disappear if they extend Kyler, which I think they're probably going to have to. I don't think he's going to be cool playing that fourth year.
Nope. I agree.
The only team in the division that has big cap space is the Niners. They have $10 million, and they're going to have a lot more because Garoppolo is going to get cut. So the Niners are probably going to have about $35 million, but that's still not even close to what we can get to. I already laid out a game plan for us to get to 68. By the way, you can extend Poona Ford, push some of that money down the line and save another $6 million. By the way, you can do that to Nick Bellore too and save $1 million. So you could get all the way up to about $75 million without doing anything too extravagant. I didn't even touch void years.
We didn't even get to void years. I mean, we're not, again, that's that relation of Saints 2015, 2016, 2017, okay, Seattle 2022, January 27th. Here's where our wave is versus where the Saints wave is. So this, in us saying go for it now, we're not in that near that same place they are by pushing for it now and going all in right now and saying, let's try for this. You're not going to feel this kind of massive pain by being really aggressive this offseason. Would you not agree?
Yeah. No pain, no gain. You got it. And look, if we are like the Saints in 5 years, but we have a couple Super Bowls over that 5-year period, I'm not going to care. I don't think anybody's going to care.
No. And everybody be just like, hey, no, it was great. I'm glad we did it. Smart move. Good. And it's the NFL lately, by the way, just again, to try to build on the point, has been, it's sort of been paying off going all in. You know, the Tampa Bay was all in. Rams have been all in. Most of these teams in the playoffs were pretty much all in this season. They used up every bit of cap space they had to use. The approach is working lately. Going out and spending money. You took the Patriots from a team that couldn't make the playoffs last year without Brady to taking a rookie quarterback and They got 9, 10 wins this year, by spending money in free agency, by just go out and improve your roster. You can do it. It's not the old days of free agency where it was more of a crapshoot and you don't know what you're getting. Now they got a little more data on these players. They know where they're at. They're a little more, I think, intelligent in their decision-making in free agency and when they spend their dollars on these guys versus what it used to be. I think some of the old guard components have gone out the door and they've gotten a little smarter, like they have a little bit in drafting, for instance, where there's a little less variance in sort of the misses to hits, in my opinion, at times, versus what you saw in like the 90s and early 2000s.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the overall point of what I just went over in terms of these numbers are that a lot of teams in the NFC are going to be having a lean year. They're not going to be able to spend money. They're going to have to work hard just to get any money at all, just to give their draft picks. So, a couple playoff teams like the Cowboys and Packers, they could be in for some real trouble in 2022 because they're going to have to work hard just to save money. A team like the Rams, divisional foe, playoff team, they're going to have to work hard just to field a team. The Cardinals are not that far off because they're going to have to pay Kyler. I don't know if Hopkins is going to need an extension, but I know he's usually starts buzzing about wanting more money about this time.
Yeah. He's a year and a half into the deal. That's about right.
Yeah. So the point is, this is the time to strike. And there are not going to be very many teams in the entire NFL, but especially in your conference, that are going to be able to outbid you. Like, if we do all those things that I talked about and get to 75 million in cap space, there might only be one or two teams in the whole NFL that have more cap space than that. Because a lot of these teams that are ahead of us right now, they don't have the Bobby Wagner contract that they can move off of. They don't have the Russell Wilson restructure that can save them $9 million. They don't have those kinds of options. So think about it.
Yeah, to your point, you just mentioned all those teams from the Saints to the Cowboys, Giants on down. They're in negative cap space. We, by Bobby Wagner, have 16 times the cap space of them, if not more, in just his release alone. Again, to just put that has nothing to do with the 50-odd, $40 million we're sitting on in cap space as it is now, even minus the cuts. The money is there, folks. The money is there. We can spend it. We can go get it. Let's hold this front office's feet to the fire. They need to go get it done this offseason. No excuses. They haven't been dwelling into free agency in 10 years. This is where I'm worried. Are you, Brendon, on this? Is that the 1 year, 2 year deals we've seen when they have had money to spend, their reticence to spend money on the offensive line, the reticence to spend money in free agency. You go, oh man, I don't know. This is where I worry a little bit that they're just not going to be as aggressive as they need to be.
I don't know what the point of these things are if you're not going to go all in, though. What's the point of keeping Russell Wilson if you're just going to tread water?
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't you be aggressively trying to move him right now if your only plan was to just tread water?
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. I don't know why you would be here right now if not to go all in this offseason with all this money.
And you're playing in the toughest division in football. You can't make any excuses for it. You can't say, oh, well, this year we just happen to be the toughest because things broke right for the Rams and broke. Blah, blah, blah. No, it's been a couple years running now. And we are by far away some of the most aggressive teams in all of football, and they all just happen to be housed in this division. It is what it is. Deal with the issue at hand. It isn't getting any easier as we go forward. It isn't. The Rams are in a tough bind. Cardinals in a tough bind. They'll find their way through it, and they'll probably push cap space down the road to do it. So we got to match that energy. And if we don't match that energy, we're going to come up a step short in where we're trying to get. We're not, we'll again not be competitive in this realm. We'll be competitive, but we won't be an elite team, I guess, which is what we're trying to talk about getting to here.
Yeah. It's, after it became clear that Carroll was going to return for 2022, I got a lot of comments in the video I made about it, basically saying, you know what, dude, calm down. I promise we're going to win 10 games this year. It's going to be back to the way it was. Don't worry. We're going to go 11-6. Not one of these people ever says like, dude, it's okay. We're going to go to the NFC title game this year. I guarantee it. Like, it's never playoff success with these people. It's like they know.
Yeah. It's you get used to mediocrity, or you get used to being just a little bit better mediocrity. It's like the base, most minimal marginal level of happiness as a fan to say, well, we win more games than we lose. We barely sneak into the back door of the playoffs. Well, is that what our standard should be here in Seattle? And as I've said, is that the standard that Paul Allen, the guy who owns this team, who passed it on to his sister, set when he bought the team in 98? Because as I've said over and over again, the winning culture here didn't start with Carroll. It didn't start with Wilson. It started with Paul Allen in 1998. That's where it started, 97, whenever he bought the team. That's when it started. And he created a winning culture here. He put his money down. He laid it down. So let's backslide into an 80s and 90s Seahawk fan mentality. Let's be the type of fans that expect more from our team. And you can call me spoiled. You can call me unappreciative of what I've seen prior, but I just want to see good football. And when you're in a position as a football team to better your team, to get them to a state of playing better football, you have some control over that, and you leave money on the table, like let's say, or you leave moves on the table that could be moved, well, then you should be called on it. And you should be called on by the fan base to expect more. Or we're going to sit through years more of mediocrity, which I don't think at the end of the day anybody really does want.
Yeah, yeah. I don't see why anyone would want that either. But hey, if this season doesn't go well and you do go be bad enough to get Carroll out of here, then looks like the Sean Payton sweepstakes might be on. So it won't all be bad.
I mean, that will be an interesting, if he doesn't take a job and you know that Carroll potentially could be going through his last year, and then you know he's sitting there, and then you know if that's keeping Wilson in tow, where Carroll says, okay, if this year goes bad, I'll retire and we'll bring in Peyton, we'll make a trade for him or whatever. It would make it, if it's a tough year, make it a little easier knowing that's on deck. Because I'm Sean Payton's legitimately a great coach. Can we agree on that? There's some scuttlebutt about this, but are you on point with? He's a great coach, whether he's here or not. Just he knows what he's doing.
Yeah, I like him. I'm high on him. I don't know about giving him GM powers, which he will probably want at his next stop.
There you go.
But he's a great coach.
That's a great
point. He is a great coach. Yeah.
Yeah, that could be something precluding too, because John Schneider probably is sitting waiting in the wings to take over that same control. He would have to take wrestle away from him to give over to Peyton if there was that taking place.
I'd rather come here than work for Jerry Jones, though, because I know the Cowboys are going to be in on that. But I'd rather come here than work for Jerry Jones. I know that.
It makes no sense to me why I'd want to go there. No coaches have wanted to go there. This is what they've not been able to hire a good candidate there since Parcells, is because everyone knows you got to deal with Jara, and nobody wants to deal with Jara. You know, I mean, I'm sorry, I don't see that. It feels like Skip Bayless trying to make that happen. He feels like he's trying to talk that into existence to me, Brendon, on that one, just a little bit, almost single-handedly.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we've got you in for an hour and a half. We're not going to touch on this really long. We'll wrap this up kind of a little bit on this note, Brendon. There's no real updates, because I know we'll have a few people asking questions on this with in regards to the defensive coordinator updates. I think the one place I just want to dive in quick, and I know I've kept you kind of long today, but is I've been thinking a little bit about the other possibility, and again, in this go in spirit, and somebody mentioned this, so this is not an original idea on my part, but one that I've kind of gotten behind a little bit, as far as if you had a Vic Fangio or one of these big defensive coordinator names out there that you could get. And I'd like you, I was talking to you a little bit. I want you to expand a bit on this co-defensive coordinator thing you've been hearing about. But what about, before we could just real quickly on that, what about us? We've got more money to spend than anybody out there. What about just throwing Vic Fangio $4 million more per season than whatever he gets at whatever prime coordinator job he wants to go to?
Well, the thing to remember is there's no salary cap for coaches.
Right.
You can spend whatever you want to spend. So with us having the richest owner in the league, I think Jody is still the richest. We looked this up recently, and she was. Mm-hmm. You should be able to just build the God squad of coaching staffs. Now, for some reason, teams don't really do that. I don't really understand why, but that seems to me to be kind of a inefficiency in some of these coaching, in some of these front offices, where they don't go, wait a minute, we don't have a salary cap on coaches.
Yeah,
let's just go crazy. The only guy who ever did that was the Raiders with John Gruden, and John Gruden's not really a guy I would have spent $100 million on. I don't know if that was a good idea, but they kind of decided, you know what, we're going to give you so much money, you can't say no. And it didn't work out, but at least they went for it. Now, I would love to bring in Vic Fangio, but he's not going to come in here to be Pete Carroll's punk. Not at all. In fact, he's going to want full control of that defense, I'm sure, because he's one of the best. He is an excellent defensive coordinator. He was even a half decent head coach. Not really a good head coach, but he was okay.
He didn't have a quarterback. I mean, it's tough for those guys if they don't have. It's like It's like Flores, Brian Flores. That, you know, where if you don't get your right quarterback, it's like you can have all the rest of the parts fine, but the stew just ain't gonna taste right.
Yeah, so I would love to get Fangio, but I don't believe for a second that Carroll would relinquish that kind of control. So
Do you think Fangio would, if Fangio, that's what I'm saying, though, if you went more, how much do you think it would take with Fangio to pay him beyond what he's offered? He ain't offered more than like 1 year, $3 million as a coach, as a defensive coordinator. I don't think anybody's going to pay him past that market and that prime gig that he could want to go get. You go and throw him $7 million. You think that's enough for him to go eat his pride and go, all right, I'll co-defensive coordinator this.
yeah, but Brandon, is that going to actually have a positive effect on this team? Is he actually going to come in here and do something that makes this defense radically better if Carroll is there? I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, that goes to some of our skepticism, though, with Carroll in general, because we know whoever he brings in, he's not going to stay out. But at least you're bringing, I guess, the brightest mind with the best track record if you were to go that path to giving you to that success. It wouldn't guarantee it. It wouldn't even make it a high likelihood. But to me, at least gives it a little bit more of a step in the direction of versus some of the names we're hearing or we've already heard kind of going through the ringer right now, which goes somewhere between that's not going to happen to sort of yes men, Carroll men, acolyte Carroll people and whatnot. You were talking to me a little bit, just to touch on this last little point about this co-defensive coordinator deal. Can you touch on this a little bit on what you were seeing on this?
So Jake Heaps, who I don't totally trust, but he's doing his best. God bless him.
God bless him.
He believes that we are going to have co-defensive coordinators in 2022. He thinks we're going to promote Clint Hurt to the run game coordinator position because we really like Clint Hurt and we don't want to lose him, but we don't think he's ready to really be a defensive coordinator yet. But we will lose him if we don't promote him in some capacity. So we're going to do that to keep him around. And I don't have anything bad to say about Clint Hurt. That's fine. But then we're also going to bring in, I've heard Ed Donatel to be the passing game defensive coordinator. And the idea is Clint Hurt would control the run game defense. Ed Donatel would control the pass game defense. And it would basically be a co-coordinator situation. The Washington Huskies did this a few years ago with Jimmy Lake and I can't remember the name of the other guy, but they had co-defensive coordinators for a little bit too.
How did it go?
Well, in that case, it actually went really well. Jimmy Lake was a defensive back guru of probably one of the best in the country at that time. He was producing stuff like crazy. Our defense was good. So it went pretty well, but you usually don't see it in the NFL. I can't think of any instances of this happening off the top of my head. So my main question is, if they do that, who's going to be the play caller? Is one of the guys going to be in charge over the other when push comes to shove? And just basically, what would it look like?
Yeah. I mean, it seems like a boom or bust move where it either seems like it's stupid or super innovative, where it could make sense in the realm of, like I've talked about a lot with you and why I don't like the coaches in their calling plays or doing too much, just being a coach, because I think the NFL has gotten so specialized and so hard and so data driven. Guys have got to be specialized in their role. And so if you got two guys kind of splitting duties it's difficult being a coordinator. It's difficult having to call plays, take in all the data your coordinators are saying in your ear, come back in real time, then draw out plays. It's got to be rough. I mean, it does. And so to have some help with that, theoretically speaking, could be beneficial if the partnership was right. But like you said, there's a lot of working out the gears in there to make that flow correctly on game day.
Yeah. Part of me kind of feels like this is almost just like a meaningless title that they're going to give to Clint Hurt to try to keep him around.
Yeah.
Because if you're bringing in Ed Donatel, who has 30 plus years of experience, he's really going to be the defensive coordinator.
Agreed.
Clint Hurt's going to be just hanging around. It almost feels like it's some ploy to try to keep Clint Hurt around because they like him and they feel like he's going to develop into the next defensive coordinator, but he's not there yet. Maybe that's what it is.
Could be. And I mean, Carroll's had some eye for young defensive coordinators. He goes through them a lot. He does like to go through himself some defensive coordinators, but he's got some guys he's turned into head coaches too.
Yeah, but however, one thing that I did see about this is that if this happened, Carroll might be the play caller, which is interesting. On the one hand, having your head coach be a play caller is kind of not good because it distracts them during the game. I remember when Jason Garrett was the head coach of the Cowboys, there would be some times when the announcers would even point it out. He wanted to go argue with the official or go talk to the official and be a head coach, but he couldn't because he needed to get the next play call in.
Yeah.
And that was a real problem for him until he actually got an offensive coordinator. I think it was Scott Linehan to start calling plays for him in Dallas. Maybe it was Bill Callahan. I can't remember. But that's not ideal. On the other hand, it does remove all barriers to heaping the blame on Pete Carroll for the defense, which I am on board with. Like, okay, Carroll trades for Jamal Adams. Ken Norton can't get the best out of him. If Carroll is calling the plays on defense and he still can't get the most out of Jamal Adams, there's nothing left that you can say other than that you are an idiot for trading for him because you had no idea how to use him.
Ding, ding, ding. That's absolutely right. And I'm opposed to this, like you just said a second ago, I'm opposed to a coach normally calling it. I'll give you another beneficial to this. And I kind of like with Carroll because he's the unusual coach. Doesn't he strike you like this too, Brendon, where he's got that ADH thing going constantly? They talk about being in his office with 4 TVs going and the radio blaring and all that, where you get him now having to call plays and it sort of keeps his busy mind locked in on the defense, where maybe we get him a little less out of the offensive side of the ball at that point too. Because now when the offense is out there, he's sort of talking more with the defensive coaches about the next couple plays coming up, about what they're seeing the offenses do, how they're attacking him. And now we get to let Waldron then just get the hands off where he gets the full control, which we all want to see, where there's no Carroll. It's just him running it full show, the full Rams offense, all 100% of the time.
Yeah. I guess that part of it would be worth it. Just give Carroll nothing to hide behind. Because I've already said, I don't think he can survive another bad season, but he really can't survive another bad season if he's controlling every step of the process on defense, where he's the GM, so he's bringing in the players. He's the head coach, so he's setting up the game plan and doing player development and training midweek. And he's the play caller, so he's doing game management, in-game adjustments, and play calling stuff during the game. There is no part of that process he does not have control over now. So if that's what happens and Pete's the play caller, then at least he'll be able to, if he's going to go down swinging completely on his terms. And there is some value there.
I like it. That's like go down swing is a great way to put it. And if with Carroll, hey, if you're going to go down, like I said, all the more and go all in on the season, you want to take play callers, go for it, do it. Take all the control you think you need to make this team successful, because this is the last kind of dance you got here. Another season of this is not going to, I don't think, fly, especially like you said, if he is calling those plays, especially with the track record. Now we're up to 6-7 years. You haven't gotten even close to the divisional round really at all, much less the conference championship. It will be an interesting part. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if you saw this, but local TV ratings for the Seahawks games this year were down 14%, which was one of the highest in the whole league. And the couple of teams that were higher were pretty much all teams that have been awful for a while, like the Texans. So that should tell you, I hope Jody saw that and realized she has a fan base that will find something better to do.
There's a large contingent of this bit. We talked about the Cardinal game where it threw both of us off. Neither of us in our football lives as Seahawks fans and all the games we've watched. And the games I've been in that stadium, I've never seen the fans booing from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. Frankly, Seahawks fans in general are really hesitant to boo in general. It's happened at times, but it tends to take pretty bad football to get to that point. And yeah, when you see those TV ratings, when you know something like that, when they're throwing snowballs at the end of the Bears game, down the players, like there's little signs here that maybe all's not well here, and we need to get this, righted. And again, I would love for it to be Carroll. I'd love for him to be rejuvenated, and he finds this last gear to his career to get another championship. If that happens, great. But it's not going to happen with them being just kind of semi-passive in their approach this offseason, or not totally putting the foot down to the bottom of the floor as far as the pedal is concerned, or they're going to end up in a similar situation like they did this year, or maybe marginally better, but back out of the playoffs after the first round. And again, do we want that in perpetuity, folks? Does that sound good for the next 5 years? One and done? Does that make any of you guys feel like that'll make you happy? 10 years of being near one and done or not making the playoffs just barely? That's not good enough,
I think there are parts of this fan base that actually do think that's good enough. That's the only way I can put it when I look at some of the comments I see on Facebook and Twitter and stuff. Some of these fans are just okay with that.
Yeah.
That's the only way I can put it.
And I'm not, I've always landed on this place of it, Brendon. I always say, I'm never going to tell a Seahawks fan or any fan how they got to enjoy their fandom, but then likewise leave me mine. And if I want to be my team to try to be great and aspire for greatness, and that's what I think a lot of this sport's built upon is that aim for greatness, and that's what makes it so special when you get to that championship point. That when you stop aspiring to that, it's not as fun for me to look at it from that realm of things. I can still enjoy football, but I want to see a team that's trying to go for championships, not to just kind of barely be good. But I don't think they are. I think you'll agree on this, Brendon. If we were to lay bets right now, if you had to lay gun to your head, somebody put a gun to your head. Let's do that one. And they said, Brendon, are the Seahawks going to be super aggressive this offseason, moving towards more of the approach like you talked about? Not all the way like what you said to the $75 million, but like kind of push to that realm? Or they'll do more of what they've done in 2019 when they had $50 million to spend and gave out 1 and 2 year deals. And somebody put a gun to your head and said, what's going to happen? Right? You got it. Your answer's got to be right, or I'm pulling this trigger if you're wrong.
Yeah. I think you do the 3-year and 4-year deal thing simply because, Carroll's old. He doesn't have a lot of time. Why would he want to just run out the clock for the next 15 years, just going one and done, or maybe winning one playoff game every year? You got to figure he's thinking like, I'm going to be out of here in a couple of years anyway, so let's just go all in. It's not going to be my problem. It's going to be the next guy's problem. It's going to be, I don't know who the next head coach is going to be. It's going to be Shane Waldron's problem. It's going to be my son's problem. I don't care about him.
Yeah.
Okay, that came out wrong.
That's going to be my son's problem.
That came out.
The sins of a father.
Yeah, that came out wrong. But the point is, if you're Carroll, aren't you kind of thinking about this like, I'm not going to be here in 8 years. I might not be here in 4 years. So let's just try to win now, and I'll be out of here anyway.
I would be answering the same thing with the gun to my head too. I'd be saying the same thing, which is it makes sense. Carroll's older, doesn't want to rebuild, trying to keep Wilson in the fray. This is they felt comfortable going into last offseason, coming on riding high on that division win, right? They could feel like, oh no, we're on the path. Now they've been sort of slapped in the face, sort of pimp slapped in the face by reality in this division. And now they know they've got to come and bring it now. And now they know they got to go. And I think that they're going to land in this trek of things. I hope they are, but I also think they are. And I would bet on it. I'd be shocked if they are just sort of passive this offseason. It would blow me away. Absolutely blow me away.
Yeah. We are going to have some canaries in the coal mine, though. If we re-sign Dwayne Brown, that'll be kind of a tell that if we decide to keep Bobby Wagner, that's going to be kind of a
great point.
Yeah. Although I do remember 2 years ago, I was making videos here on YouTube. It was before 2020, so it was the 2020 off season. Every day in my streams, we would talk about why haven't we cut Justin Britt? Why haven't we cut Justin Britt? Oh my God, are we really going to bring back Justin Britt for $11 million? What are we doing? And it took until like May, but we finally did it. So it could be a while before we find out, right? Don't assume that we're going to keep Bobby just because he's still on the roster in early March or something like that. I'll just point that out too.
It's a great point, though. It does, and it's you can hold the guy on roster for a variety of reasons too. If you're trying to, we're trying to not have a free agent cook us on the books with saying, well, you got all this money you've cleared now that you moved Bobby, you can pay me more. But I would say those are canaries in the coal mine, giving out a lot of 1-year deals. That would be a canary in the whole coal mine to me. Boy, if they gave Quandre, there's so many fans out there right now, especially on Twitter. I'm seeing this all over the place, Brendon, with just sign Quandre. So I'm just going, man. Guys, it wouldn't be maybe an indication of going in the bad direction, but that wouldn't be an indication necessarily to the good either, unless you're, again, looking to just fit as many contracts as you can. Just stack them up, just force fit them.
Yeah, there's a universe where you keep Quandre and still go all in aggressively on free agency. I don't think that's unreasonable. It's just, no. I mean, to me, I'll say it again. If Carroll's the defensive back guru, you got to make do with a little bit less there, less capital.
Agreed.
God, I don't know how many people in the modern day understand the canary in the coal mine reference. I think a lot of people might.
Yeah, maybe not. There's a couple. I've found a few of my sayings. I've said to a couple of young people, and they give me the blank look, and I'm like, oh, that one's I got to retire that one. That one. Yeah. It's too good though. Canary in the coal mine is too good, man. And the meaning behind it's like I'm keeping that one alive forever because that one's an awesome reference. And there'll be some others, I think too, that we could take away from if it's just a few things they do. We're going, oh goodness, but I again don't think they will. Couple quick, donos real fast. Charles Riley, $5 donation. You two already know this, but there's a lot of cats in your stream that have baseball fever, so you two can build on the M's this year if they perform. Well, thank you for the double dono tonight, Charles. I'm getting hyped for baseball. Is there going to be a baseball season this year, Brendon?
I have no idea. I'm just sitting here watching it happen and hoping that we do. But something tells me they won't lose a whole season. Something tells me they're not going to be willing to lose a whole season.
It does look like we're going to miss games, though. Would you say that? kind of at this point?
We are kind of trending in that direction right now, but I haven't been following it that closely. I'll just be honest.
Oh, labor negotiations are one of the lamest things to do to cover in sports. So it's like I don't blame you, but we might. Me and Brendon have been talking a little bit about that. We might be doing some stuff with baseball. We're going to see where it kind of is. As Brendon was talking before, it's been obviously the Mariners being bad in the past. There's not been much a market for it, but if we get enough of folks kind of clamoring for it, I'm sure we can figure something in with some Mariner content here at some point. Thank you again, Charles Riley. Another donation says, lay your cards down, chat. Niners or Rams in the conference championship. I'm a Niners guy because I hate the Rams mostly due to them beating up the Hawks. Ooh, where you land on this one? Thank you for the $5 donation again there, Charles.
To me, it's pretty simple. I hate the Rams more than I hate the Niners, so I am going to be pulling for the Niners. And I mean, look, I don't have a problem with what the Rams did this year. Some people do. There is something a little more inauthentic about the way they put that team together compared to the 49ers, right? It's like the Brooklyn Nets versus a team like the Milwaukee Bucks.
Yeah. And maybe it's my little conspiracy tickling, but I just feel like the NFL wants to make LA a thing, and they want that market to, and so you feel like as well they get a lot of, whether it's real or not, maybe it's just my own mind creating ghosts. It feels like they get a little artificial bump in that respective thing. So I'm with you on that. It's weird to see my hate sliding away from the Niners as much to the Rams, but it's done that. It's happened. And
and one other thing, by the way, to that point, the Rams have been one of the best teams in the league over the last 5 years. They played in the Super Bowl. They're in the NFC title game. They've won what now? God, since they arrived in LA, how many playoff games have they won? It's like, God, is it 7?
Wow, is it that many?
Yeah, I think it's 7 now. And they still can't get any fans to go show up for their NFC title game against a division rival. You've heard about it, right?
I have, yeah.
They cannot get fans in there. Yeah. So what I'm trying to get at here is I think they're going to be back in St. Louis in like 10 years. It's not going to happen.
It isn't going to, and they tried to put 2 franchises in LA at the same time. I agree with you 100%. LA is not going to be a thing. Anybody that's been to LA knows there's too much other stuff going on. There's too many transplants there that already have teams that they like more than LA. They're just, it's not built that way for them to be, they're just not that, they're not into it. They're just not into you. They're just not into your Rams. They're just not.
Yeah. The final point I want to make here, it kind of depends on when you grew up as a Seahawks fan. I became a hardcore Seahawks fan during the Greatest Show on Turf, Kurt Warner, and then Mark Bulger era. So when I was really becoming a super hardcore Seahawks fan, it was when the Rams were the team that kept beating us. I went to the playoff game where they beat us, the one where Bobby Ingram dropped the touchdown.
Oh, I couldn't believe you dropped that.
Yeah, I was in the stadium for that game. I remember it. And to me, that's always been our number one rival, because back then the Niners were nothing. They were starting Sonny Six Killer at quarterback or something.
Yeah, they were going through a myriad of guys. That's for sure. It was
Tim Rattay, Cody Pickett. It was insane. It was insane, the garbage they were sifting through. But to me, the Rams are always going to be the team that I hate.
I'm with you on it. They've developed for me along that path. I remember those games, man. The Greatest Show on Turf gave it to us a couple times, didn't they? I mean, there was a few games in there that we weren't at our best. That was Holmgren just starting to kind of put things together at the end there, when they were getting hot. His beginning when they were at their whatever. And we had some tough games in there. It was not fun playing the Rams. And boy, Bobby dropping that pass, that little 7-yard in route there, he caught those all day long in his career. One of the more sure-handed receivers in Seahawks history. I mean, that guy caught everything. And just a brutal drop.
You know what? It's surprising how often some very predictable thing undoes a team season. Like that year, we led the league in drops. I remember we had receivers who couldn't catch anything. Corn Robinson, I think Darrell Jackson, those guys could not catch. No. They're the worst hands in the league. It kind of makes me think of this year where you're watching that Packers team and going, they have terrible special teams.
Yeah.
You know that special teams is going to cost them in the playoffs, and first playoff game they play, it's the main reason why they lose.
Well, it's maybe the lesson you take away from that is if you as an NFL team are early on in the season having some thing again and again that there's a thing that's overtaking you and you're before the trade deadline, or you're in a position to do any kind of change, whatever it is that's the thing that's causing you the problem, do deal with it. Because that's a great point about the Packers and their special teams, is that thing was propping up throughout the year where they're going, "Ooh, this is really, we got to kind of, maybe we should do something." And maybe it's too late at that point, but you at least got to try. And I don't think the Packers did anything to try in fixing what they were doing on the fly with that. They just kind of like, well, let it ride out. It is what it is at this point. And is it, or can you do something to maybe be more aggressive on that?
Right. So yeah, I am going to be pulling for the Niners. But to a lot of people in the chat I know are a little younger than me. So they may have grown up and become hardcore Seahawks fans during the Jim Harbaugh era. So maybe they hate the Niners more because of that.
I've
because
seen
the
it.
Rams were terrible then too.
I've seen it. I think it's split. I think there's a 50-50 between the fan base on that. I'll say this one thing. Nobody cares about the Cardinals.
Well,
there's a very moderate amount of, they're more of an annoyance, like, and they played us tough. It's not that we've been like just beating them. It just more of, there's that, just feels more of that rivalry between the other two right now.
Yeah. You know who I hate though? Bruce Arians. I cannot stand that guy.
Yeah.
I hate him more than I hated Harbaugh. Yeah. Honestly. And I didn't like Harbaugh very much. I hate Bruce Arians. I could not stand that tomato looking guy on the sideline.
I'm with you. And he just doesn't seem like the guy I'd want to play for if I was a player. And again, he's had one of those attitudes where it's like, it makes you roll your eyes constantly with some of the stuff he says. It's kind of surprising me. Sometimes he's been able to get locker rooms to, I was at least a bit surprised when he started smacking the guy in the helmet the other day. Like, he got in trouble for that, right? That the 30,000 fine. He didn't really hit him hard, but you're not surprised. He's the coach. If there's one coach in the NFL where they're like, oh, an NFL coach smacked a player on the helmet, I go, yeah, is it Arians? That might be the first guy I go to in my mind, if there's one. All right, Charles Riley, another donation. Those fans singing like Doobie Brothers, Pete Carroll is just all right with me. It's a good song. Sorry, we got a couple more. Charles just coming hard with the dono game. Thank you, Charles. You're awesome. I appreciate you, brother. He says, does Brendo recycle so his son doesn't inherit a constant storm?
I do recycle. I actually pee into one of those things that like distills it and produces water.
Waterworld style?
Yeah. What do they call those things? The shoot, I can't remember what they're called.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Oh God, what is it?
Whatever. Somebody in chat's gonna remember. But anyway, sure, I recycle.
What they call that in the Dune suits? And they wear those in the Dune suits.
Oh yeah, the Dune suits. Yeah, they were like you can survive for like 2 weeks with no water because it just constantly recycles your own. Yeah.
So you just let it go and it's absorbing it back in off your body. Like, well, thank you, Charles. Again, you're awesome for all those donations, brother. I appreciate you. Well, we covered everything for the most part. I want to cover we just passed 2 hours here, Brendon. I appreciate you hanging on in there. I know we went long.
No problem.
Any kind of last thoughts on the gate from you here as we kind of wind things up a bit?
Well, so we spent all this time talking about the salary cap today, and a lot of people, I see them in chat are saying, oh, we're not going to do anything with that. That's not really the point. That's not why we're saying this stuff. Mm-hmm. The team is going to do what they're going to do. They don't listen to me. They don't watch these streams, I don't think. So the point is that we as fans need to understand that if they don't use that cap space, and then they come out at some point and basically imply that, oh, it's not our fault, guys. Wilson's took all our money. Jamal took all our money. It's not true. Just understand that if that's what ends up happening, it's not true, and don't buy it. Okay. It's not because they couldn't, it's because they didn't want to. And then ask yourself, why did they not want to? And that's the point I'm trying to get to here.
Brendon is so 100% on this. This is the point of this exercise, not for us to predict who the Seattle Seahawks are going to sign and then be able to puff up and say, oh, look how right we were. It's to say, we're trying to hold some feet to the fire here and be honest. We really are. And we think that there's a little bit of, I sometimes speak for you and I shouldn't, Brendon. Sorry. There's a little bit of dishonesty in the organization. There has not been one media reporter that has asked since the beginning of the end of the season to now why you held on to $10.5 million of salary cap space and didn't use every last dollar, why you didn't restructure Wilson's deal as was built in the contract in 2018, why you didn't go for it in a seemingly make or break it year with your Hall of Fame quarterback. Not one reporter has asked that question. It would seem like kind of an obvious question to ask, that somebody would jump into the fray and ask that. And me and Brendon deal with fans in our chat that sort of support this. Oh, don't speak about that. Everything's okay. Everything's fine. we think we should speak about this. It's worth noting because this is tangible evidence of, oh, they're not truly going for it. They're not all in. And again, I didn't mean to speak for if it was on that, Brendon, but I think you're in that same realm of it, if I'm not right.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm already, as a fan, kind of at the point where it's happened and we can't do anything about it. But it still kind of blows my mind that we're bringing Carroll back after he went out there in a press conference in the middle of the season and literally said, I'm trying everything I can think of and nothing works. I don't know how you bring a coach back after he says that. To me, that's kind of like the point where you go, oh, well, then you don't need to be collecting paychecks from me anymore, right? Because you're trying everything you can think of, which is by definition, everything that you can think of, and it's not working. How can I bring you back? How are you going to earn any money? So it still kind of irritates me that he got away with saying that. He got away with it.
Yeah.
So I mean, here we are. So now all we can do is hope that they change their process. And maybe Carroll tries to do some things that he didn't think about doing before, where maybe he goes, okay, I might have to pay Teron Armstead $80 million, $90 million. Okay. That really wasn't part of the playbook before, but it has to be. I got to try to do something that I haven't done before. So that's what I'm getting at.
That's it, and that's well said. That's just where I land with it too. All I want to see is things, as I've said, fix mistakes that have been popping up again and again in the past. You've done the same things kind of since about 2017-ish. Not much fluctuation in your strategy or change. Change it now. It's not getting you. It's only getting you to a certain good amount of success, and that success is very, very limited. So the only way to get beyond that is to actually change course and do something that's different than what you've done. And that's why we're pointing to this. You got money to spend, Brendon. What did you come out to? $75 million. If you really, wanted to be uber aggressive, and we're not acknowledging again, we know they're not going to do this. We know they're not going to get anywhere near to $75 million, but they could get somewhat close, and they could do a lot of damage.
I think they could get to 60 million. No problem. I think they could get to 60.
Yeah, agreed. And then all they could do with that money, Brendon, because you could accomplish a lot if you want to squeeze those contracts in. You give out bonus money, you squeeze in that first year and you make it low, you fit all those contracts within, and then you're back to competing with the rest of this conference that you spoke about a second ago is in some trouble as far as their cap space goes, right? Mm-hmm. Nine of the worst 11 teams in this NFL going into this offseason, 9 of the worst 11 teams all reside in the NFC conference.
Right. So. Absolutely. And 2 of our division rivals are in a huge amount of trouble. So
the Rams,
not rule that out.
I don't know what the Rams are going to do. Not to go on last track, but your point on them with their situation on. I looked through their deals a little bit with Robert Woods. You can cut. They can get rid of Whitworth, but now you have to go find your left tackle, right? And that's the only obvious move they've got. Plus, Stafford's probably going to want a new deal. Probably going to want to get paid.
Yeah.
He's never been a guy who's shied away from money in his career. He's never been one of those guys that's like, I'll take the discount.
Yeah, they do have a significant amount of base salary they can convert to bonus in some of these players. But again, you're just making the wave bigger. You're just making that wave bigger.
That's right. That's right. And our wave's tiny right now. We're a little like, we got like a slight wind on our waters. That's all we got going right now. We can get to the wave. I'm advocating the wave. So let's build that wave and let's get to it. And then all the damage will be done by arriving at that spot, in my opinion. Well, Brendon, fantastic show as ever, man. You killed it on this show as you always do. I will give you the final kind of sign off here as far as any last thoughts. You summed it up well there with your final point, but any last things here to rip it on through?
Not really beyond anything that I already said. I just want everyone to understand that no, Russell Wilson did not take all our cap space. No, Jamal Adams did not take all our cap space. That's not their excuse for us not going out there and being aggressive. The only excuse will be that we didn't want to, because for some reason we feel like the goal is not to win a championship. And nothing irritates me more than when a Seahawks fan goes out there and says, Wilson needs to take a pay cut because we don't have enough money to sign any players because he took all the money. That's not how this works. That's not even close to how this works. And I am not Russell Wilson's biggest super fan. I'm not somebody who places him over the team. But there is plenty of money even with Wilson's contract. There is plenty of money even with Jamal's contract. The cap goes up every year. So when this team makes the decisions that they're going to make this offseason, understand that it's not coming from a place of they can't spend big if they don't. It's they don't want to spend big if they don't. And that's really all it is to say.
Well said. And Wilson, you lose when you hold over $11 million in cap space and roll that over and don't use that. You lose all of the leverage over the top of Wilson to say, hey, we're used up all the cap space and you're still taking up all of this. To Brendon's point, you lose a little bit of that upper hand at that point to be able to come back and say, you should take a discount. You're not even using up all the cap space. Why should I take a discount? So 100% true. And again, on Jamal Adams' deal, you brought him in the first year, he cost $3.3 million. Last year, he hit the cap at $5.1 million. This next year, he's going to hit the cap at $9 million. That's not an exorbitant cost. That's not taking up a huge bit of the cap. There's plenty of other space within that.
You spent almost that much on Greg Olsen.
Boom. That's all I'm saying. Last couple of donations in here. Paul Third with a $2 donation. Can you win a Super Bowl only throwing one touchdown in the playoffs?
If you jump in a time machine to the 1950s, then yes.
Yeah, they already tried to get this far before, and they lost the Chiefs when they got to a team that was putting up multiple touchdowns, even against their really good front at that time, which was a better front for at that time. So even if the Niners sneak through here, they're not. They will be topped out against going up against the Chiefs. I think.
Yeah. By the way, I have to be honest. I think the Rams will probably win. I think that 6-game winning streak is coming to an end. I'm just being honest.
Agreed. You watched the guys limping at the end of the game. Williams, Debo. There was one other guy that they had kind of just, you could see him kind of just gingerly walking around. Fred Warner going with his injury. I think they're just, they feel like they've kind of wore a little bit out to get to the spot where the Rams are really clicking and they're relatively healthy at this point. Cam Akers coming back with his fresh legs. It's going to suck, but I agree with you. I think the freaking Rams are going to go to the Super Bowl. Ugh. God. Charles Riley, another $2 donation. Thank you, Charles. Again, awesome. Appreciate you guys. He says, thanks, Brendo. You two are a great duo. Well, I definitely agree with you on that. I think it's been a great show doing this with you, Brendon. And I love doing this, man. So we got to keep going with this. We're going to keep going with this, of course. We're just keep driving through. So thank you for doing this. By the way, I know it takes up quite a bit of time because I go long.
Don't worry about it.
Tom Third, Paul Third again. Thank you for your double donation. Says Tom Brady says yes.
I'm trying to think if this is a reference to something. I don't think Brady's ever won a Super Bowl in a postseason where he only threw for one touchdown. Maybe the first Super Bowl because he really wasn't doing anything back then, but
maybe the Dylan Super Bowl.
No. The first Super Bowl because he missed the AFC title game. Bledsoe came in relief.
Oh, Paul got it on a. Okay, Paul.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Let me check.
That's right. Bledsoe did. No, you're right. Bledsoe did come in on that. He played the Steelers, I think, and played a good game. So
yeah,
Paul
he held it together, man. Hold on. Okay, here. So postseason stats. Tom Brady. This is riveting podcast stuff right now. Yes, he threw for one touchdown in the entire playoff run in 2001.
All right. Well, I mean, if it's been done before, it can be done again, I guess. Though Tom Brady is, as I always say, like with Tom Brady taking the guy who's he's won a Super Bowl taking up more than 14.5% of the cap. And who is that guy? Is Tom Brady. No quarterback's ever won a Super Bowl throwing only one touchdown through the playoffs. Oh, but Tom Brady, it's like, he's kind of that true outlier. I don't think I'll put Garoppolo in the same territory.
By the way, I think Mahomes is he taking up 15% of the cap this year for the Chiefs?
Nope.
So we might. Oh, really? I know he will be, but yeah, okay. I guess he did push it back a little bit. So he had
the first signing that he had, which was the 10-year deal. I've got it actually right here. He had the first year that he signed, which was the 10-year deal, and then he restructured it through. I'm probably not. It's probably again riveting stuff here on the deal, but bear with me. I've got it here. Sorry.
And I think Stafford's making over 15%. So if he wins, then that streak will be broken, if I'm right.
Stafford is, I believe, because he doesn't have any bonus money on the hook for the Rams. So I don't know if he is at that spot or not. And I thought I had the stat. I had brought this stat up because, Brendon, it was referenced with Mahomes on people. But it was actually really low with him when I was looking at it. Like he was still in the single digits of percentage, I believe, when I was looking at his restructure last.
Okay, I just looked it up. 2021, his cap hit was actually only $7.5 million. So you are right. Very low. But next year, it's fat and there's nowhere to run. I'll just put that out there.
They're going to have to eventually. They're going to have to pay him. But the thing I like what he's done with that is with that 10-year deal initially, and then to restructure it the very next year after signing the deal. What I love about that as a quarterback and a leader is that he's driving already forward so young in his career. This is on his second or third contract. He's on his first big contract, and yet he's already restructuring at every point of the deal to fit more players in. And that's how they've kept Kelsey, Tyreek, and all of the other guys. That's how they've been able to rebuild an offensive line in an offseason.
Yeah, it's that State Farm money.
That's right. State Farm paying like like nobody's business.
Yeah. But yeah, and by the way, one thing about Wilson restructuring, since I know some people were going to ask about this, Wilson has already said, restructure me whenever you want to. You don't even need my permission. Just do it, because it doesn't affect him. So that's not the blocking point here. Some people think that we didn't restructure Wilson because Wilson didn't want to. No, that's definitely not what's going on here.
100% wrong. 2018, the Seattle Seahawks front office, John Schneider, negotiated into the contract that they could automatically convert Russell's base to bonus money at this point in the contract moving forward without Russell Wilson's need of approval. They can just do it. So that's not even 100% incorrect all the way down the line on that one. They can do whatever they want on that. They have maximum flexibility all the way around on this type of stuff. Again, the way we're not at a wave point, we're a little ripple on that. Yeah. But Paul Third, Charles Riley, thank you to all the folks here for donating. You guys are awesome on that. So we'll be seeing these games coming up. Again, thank you so much, Brendon, tonight. I appreciate it. We're going to keep going forward. We're going to meeting of minds. I'll be back over on Brendon's channel. Again, if you're not subscribed to Brendon's channel, it's Seahawks, Brendon Nelson. Go find his channel there, poke over there, get on in. I believe I've gotten the link still in my description. If not, we'll get it in there on the next one on that one. Brendon, I had it in my deal, but
I think it's there.
I think it's there. But anyway, Seahawks, Brendon Nelson, easy enough to find out there. Big channel over there, covers a lot of content, does some great breakdowns over on his end. Please go over there and subscribe. We do this weekly on my channel, Thursday, 7 o'clock, then over on his channel, Thursday, 7 o'clock, the next week after that. We'll keep going, and we'll keep building on this content. It's been going really great. I've been loving this. Fans have been really enjoying. We had 150 people on in at the chat tonight. And again, we're in a point where, as you can attest, Brendon, people are like so out on Seahawks. I'm in the off season, moving on. So I love the support in that realm.
Yeah, maybe one of these weeks we're going to do a show where we just talk about non-sports stuff if we've run out of stuff to talk about. I know some of these people seem to be kind of interested in what we think about other things, so maybe that's what we're going to get to at some point. I don't know.
As I've said on my channel lately, I've got my people, I'm sure you're same place, Brendon, we'll just talk Seahawks. Like the content will expand into all realms of things to a degree, because that's how the channel grows. And that's the people have got to kind of understand and get on board with that a little bit, because the point of these channels is to grow with them, not to stay low, but to keep growing and keep building and keep being bigger.
And the team has to give us stuff to talk about.
That's right. That's the other thing. We need stuff. We're not just going to drum up stuff for clickbait. We want to talk about actual items there are to discuss. Well, great discussion tonight. I'm hyped for this offseason, Brendon. We're not in a retool. We're not in a build. We don't have a lot of faith in this team, but at least we're going to be given a shot, right? We're going to take the home run swing, right? At least you're going to go for that upper deck here this offseason. And I mean, that's not the worst thing. You can be one of those teams completely in the in-between phase, or kind of like what we did this last offseason, where you sort of tried to split the difference. So at least that part's encouraging. At least that part's hopeful from where we stand.
Yeah. All right, man. You have a good night. Thank you to everybody who showed up in the chat this time around. I know we got like 150 people in here still, something like that. But yeah. So I'll say one time before I sign off here, go Hawks.
Go Hawks. Last donations. Paul Third. Raylan gives approval. Oh yeah, they're bringing back Justified, which I'm super hyped about. Brendon, I don't know if you like that show, but they are bringing that one back. And so that's awesome. And Charles Riley at Megan Gock Rogers, a huge Rams fan. So should we talk Rams? For this week, I'm making Megan hate the Rams. She's gonna have to love the 49ers this week. So thank you guys for your donations there at the end. I really do appreciate it. All the donations you got to do the chat. Please do hit the like button. Go subscribe to Brendon's channel. And please, guys, don't forget, go Hawks. Give me go Hawks, Brendon. I can't sign off without go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
There we go.
Okay, I guess we're rating the TheSeahawksNest channel now, because he signed off without. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this happened last time, by the way. So I guess I'm gonna try to get him banned now. I'm gonna go find my dad's bong and I'm
here. I'm back. I figured
okay.
I set up I set it up right before I did this, and it didn't do it, man. So they changed their settings in this. How?
Yeah, I was about to go try to get my dad's bong and do something on stream to try to get you banned, but you came back in time.
I just got back in time, man. I'm gonna have to check with you offline on this on what I'm doing wrong because I had this setting set to this where I set the deal just like I've done before where I have the control and it didn't turn off. So
Mhm.
that's odd.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think there's a thing in the upper right corner where you click and it says like end stream or something like that.
I did it and it just closed it. Let's try it again here.